I mean, it's not even about beers. It's just you seem to be all about fat tires now.
Well, I mean, and I mean, obviously, excuse me, Mister, I got hooked up on this thing. I just finished dropping a video. Like the video that dropped on Monday was not an accident. It was finished like a few weeks before. They delayed it because there was some kind of availability for Amazon or whatever. So that was like Monday morning. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And then shortly after that, I get another email. There's a company called AdMotor. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I don't know them.
They make kind of like cruiser type style bikes. It's a different style than, let's say, the Velotric that you have right there, right?
Sure.
The Vet, because that one's more of, I feel like it's built on the chassis of a regular, like regular dirt bike, but bigger, accommodating the fat tire. This is more of where the seat is like the old. If you remember back the old bikes back when we were kids, and they used to basically have like the extra attachments with the lights, where the seat was really long and you had a really tall
kind of
back.
the banana seats. Yeah.
Yeah. So think that style seating, slightly wider and obviously
So
higher because of the fat
more
tire.
of like a cruiser.
It is. It truly is
Oh,
like a
that's cool.
cruising type of bike. And initially, I didn't realize it was a fat tire. So once I got on, so I have the bike. Obviously, I assembled it a couple of days ago, and I finally was able to take it out today because we've had all this, funky weather as we call it here.
It's been pretty gross.
It is nice. It is
Nice. That's great.
really like it's a different way of riding because I feel like I'm sitting like you know what I mean, like it's
you're
the like there's more space behind me. There's even kickstands for somebody to sit behind me, so actually the seat is long to accommodate that. But I went on it. I did a couple of about like 6-7 mile ride, nothing big, just to kind of break it in, get the feel of it.
That's awesome.
It's exciting. It is.
That's really cool. Well,
I think that's my lunchtime activity from now on. That's all I can do. Go
I
right.
feel like that's for us talking about technology and trying to get people out of the house, and you should go touch some grass.
Yes, definitely.
It's good times. Fresh air, get a little vitamin D, get some sunshine. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Best of Our Week, where two old guys
ride fat tires. No, I was kidding.
Talk about e-bikes and I don't know. We should probably talk like some video gaming and stuff like that too.
We should start talking video games. I mean, if I can get my system running, but then we can talk about that. Call of Duty's been crashing my PC.
Real quick before we go more into this, they're saying I'm way low and you're way high, so that your audio is too loud and mine is too quiet.
Okay, let's go in there and reconfigure.
See. I think my mics are about the same from where we were last week. Now, I think on my ears you do sound a little like sizzling, like you're getting up to those limits, but I don't know that.
Okay, am I better now, or is it still? Oh, you let me. I'm gonna just say I'm gonna give you some numbers, and then you tell me what I sound like.
Better. That sounds better to me. I have no idea of what they can hear. So
5,
if we
4,
still sound
3, 2, 1.
tremendously imbalanced, drop us another comment. So,
please,
welcome to another episode of the Best of Our Week, where we've got lots of stuff to catch up on.
Tons of things to catch up.
I had to do a gimmicky Monday morning tech chat because Apple was so inconsiderate to schedule their press conference right in the middle of when my podcast would
every year. They never learn. They never learn.
They're really rude.
Yep,
Apple,
very much.
They're kind of big old fat bullies.
Tim
really
needs to
awful.
talking. We need to go up there. I mean, it's not far. It's like a 5.5 hour drive. We could go up there.
Just have some
just
words.
have
And be like,
like a heart to heart conversation.
What's up with that?
Your vision, bro, is just not doing it for me right now. Yeah.
We're gonna get into that quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I know.
I know. I've got a lot of really hardcore Apple fanboys who are up in their feels about me not liking their presentation. That I did not think their presentation of simulated experiences was the end-all be-all in the future of AR and VR and MR.
No,
but
yeah.
we can definitely.
Oh, absolutely! Yeah, we'll kick in with that. That's going to be the meat of our story today. So, well, first and foremost, obviously, I'm back. I'm back in person. We're in the same time zone this time. We're no longer there. And to all of our friends in.
Were you East Coast? Did you get to?
Yeah, I was in Brooklyn last week.
So you dodged all of the hellfire.
So like
smoke
barely. When we were there on, oh my God, like so Thursday, right? Thursday before the show. No, not Thursday. Wednesday. Sorry, mistake. So Wednesday before the show, you could start smelling it a little bit. There was like that ashy scent in the air.
Yeah,
You
we
couldn't
know
see
that
it.
smell.
Oh yeah. So to me, I was like, I told him like, I know what that is. We have fires. It's California. I was like, is it August yet? No. And because I think when I was talking, Mr. Mobile, Michael Fisher was saying, I think I was starting to smell it, and as we were walking, because we decided to walk, we were in Brooklyn. I took the ferry for the first time. That was actually nice. And as we were getting into Manhattan, it was starting to smell a little bit. So you could kind of get the hint. And obviously, this week they've been going with way more of the haze. They actually got it a lot. Well, actually, kind of like how we usually get it. Like whenever it gets
Okay.
really bad fires, we do get that haze, that orange sky. But it looks different, obviously, in a city with a lot of tall buildings. So it's very different. It's almost like you have the I forgot which filter it was. Like somebody was commenting saying it's like you have the Sophia filter all the time.
Yes, everything's sepia. Yeah.
Sepia, sorry.
Or
not sepia.
I again, being of a more Hispanic or Latino persuasion, it has been really funny to see all the memes about. I guess New York has been transported to Mexico, because every time you see Mexico in like a TV show, it's orange.
Orange? Yeah, it's
Like the white balance is off, but apparently that's Mexico. So I guess that's how we're doing it.
Well, I do hope for the people that they do take care of themselves. And if anybody, any of you guys, and I don't think it's actually isolated to New York. I think it's probably hitting most of the East Coast. Primarily,
a big chunk of it. It's just New York gives us the most iconic images of
absolutely. Yeah,
like the New York City skyline looking like it's during the middle of the apocalypse. So
I know, and I was like, I was just there like last week.
I hope they're
Friday,
doing okay.
Yeah.
As a Californian, use your masks.
Absolutely.
There is no reason to breathe that kind of air quality.
And if you don't have to, and if you don't have to go out, please
don't.
stay indoors. Yeah,
but
don't.
if you do, we have like our pockets are full of old masks and things.
I'm sure everybody still has boxes of those things sitting in their
Put
room.
one on, and you will do so much better for it. We had a bunch of even just those like weak, lame surgical masks for one of the really bad fires that we had before the pandemic. And even that was a huge help in not feeling like, that you were basically just a 3-pack-a-day smoker. So
absolutely,
we have lots of ground to cover. We did not actually discuss a run of show.
No,
we didn't. Do we want to save Apple, or do we want to? Because like good podcasting would be save Apple to the end so that people have to listen to us.
Hold them rest. No, I think so. Here's what I think. I think the Apple conversation is going to be the longest. I feel like there's so many things that
let's knock out, because we both have like we can both talk Xperia 1. You've been spending time with some Realme, and then
absolutely.
we can just dedicate the whole rest of the conversation to wrapping up WWDC.
Absolutely. And I think that would be the better thing. And I feel like to start it off with a little bit, kind of going back to that New York conversation. A few weeks prior to that, I was in New York for this device, for the Realme 11 Pro Plus 5G, and I will say, this has been the most surprising Realme smartphone that I've seen to date, primarily because of the price point and the features that they've included. At the time when they had it, we met up with them. We knew obviously the launch event was going to come up. They told us the phone, just to kind of give everybody a reference. The video's up on the channel, and of course, it is a gorgeous,
pretty
vegan leather, fake leather. I don't know what people want to call it, and it's pulling so much. Where is my? Oh my god! Don't you just hate it when you don't know where your phone went? There. No, it's not there. Okay. Now I don't know where. Oh no, there. It's right in front of me. Like it's really pulling a lot from where the Find X6 Pro is pulling from. The design, the aesthetics, like I wanted to kind of just show it in the video. So here, you could see they copied a lot. And then obviously they're not using the same lenses and stuff like that. But like if you just look at the phone and then look at the Realme, they definitely look like big brother, young brother. And
I'd say they're solid cousins.
They're very much solid cousins in the family, definitely in the family. I'll say
keeping
that.
it in the family.
Keep it in the family. The biggest thing about this device is an approach to telephoto cameras without having a telephoto. They're doing something. The way they're describing it, at least, is essentially sensor cropping. They're cropping on the sensor as opposed to cropping on the actual using optical elements to be able to zoom in and get in that optical zoom. So one of the things Realme has received a lot of feedback on is why do they not have telephoto, or why do they not incorporate telephoto lenses on their cameras? So one of the things they decided to do with this device is to first go with a Samsung sensor, which is kind of weird going to a Realme event but then seeing a Samsung representative going up on stage and talking about something. Like, you feel like, did I sign up for the wrong meeting? Am I here for the right? Wait, hold on, who's on first? Kind of a conversation. But they were very nice. It's a Samsung ISOCELL camera sensor. I think it's 1/1.4 inch sensor, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Definitely larger than what we had last year. And the way they're trying to do it essentially is they're doing the 2x lossless zoom, because that's pretty much just like the best experience we've been able to see recently is that 2x has been very solid. Where they're pushing it is when they go to that 4x and they're still able to give us a very clear image.
Nice.
Now, I will say, and not to kind of too much spoil the video, it will be dependent on lighting. I'll say that much. How much light you have will give you the better images, obviously, when you go into 4x.
Because again, once you start kind of sampling image data from smaller and smaller subpixels, you're immediately running into noise. And then there are bigger issues with demosaicing all of those pixels and then blowing up the image. So it's it's one of the things that really bugs me about Samsung phones, but then also all of these phones that are playing these games. It would be fine if you gave me an 8 megapixel image. Like, the fact that they always have to, like, okay, well, we've zoomed in to the point where we're absolutely reducing the photo IQ, and we're going to make this a 12 megapixel image. You're like, but that information really didn't exist. So you're just saving a larger, blurrier file that's taking up more of my storage. And it's going to look exactly the same as if I had a lower resolution image. Like, it's not helping anything.
Sorry, I just realized I am way overexposed on this one.
Yeah, you're getting all kinds of blown out.
There we are. Okay. I keep forgetting. It's, I guess, like you go.
Why do you have like auto exposure on? Why don't you just like?
It's because I'm not recording. No, I'm not.
Lock that down. Just lock it.
I typically have it configured in the Sony app so that it automatically sets the right exposure, and I always can see it.
But it
But
doesn't.
then for some reason,
it always sets the wrong exposure.
Only because I'm not actually recording. This because we're using the camera as just as a light as a pass through.
Recording, and my Panasonic isn't like turning me into Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Okay, Juan.
Are you saying that Sony cameras are not as good as Panasonic cameras? Is that what you're saying there, TK?
I think we need to leave that to when we start talking Xperia, my friend.
Do I need to have some conversations with Sony PR because they always make fun of me because I use Panasonic cameras?
Nah, my friend. Here, let's jump. Let me just bump up the ISO a little bit.
Oh, now we're getting moody. I like it.
Yeah. Well, you want to start? You want to get the mood set up correctly? We can do that.
TK in the PM.
No, seriously. The experience.
So back to the real me.
Back to the real me. Back to the real you. I think overall, what surprised me the most was first we're using it's a new processor from MediaTek, but it's technically a rebranded processor. Thanks to Miriam Tank Girl, like put me straight on that one, because I did not catch on the fact that the 1050 that we have is the 7050 that we have. The 1050 is a rebranded 1080. MediaTek is going through and they're going and rebranding some of their SoCs to streamline the overall order of them, and the overall performance here is mid-ranger, exactly what Realme is done for. The 10 Pro, the 11 Pro are pretty much mid-range experiences. One of the things that you were talking about when you were shooting content, especially at that 4X, there is a slight delay when you're getting those images because it does have that, it's trying to sharpen the image to give you as clean of an image as you can. And I think it does a decent job. And hopefully with the image samples that I shared in the video and the videos in there as well.
I mean, they look good. And especially because you snuck me a few of those sneak peek photo samples before your video went live. And I think there's a lot of merit. We've been, like, for example, we don't really bat an eye at an iPhone 14 only having 2 camera sensors. And I'm increasingly feeling like a decent half-inch-ish or larger camera sensor with a good subpixel array. I feel like it's better to just do the pixel crop than include a weak telephoto sensor. Now, if you can give me a really nice telephoto sensor that does out like a 75 or an 80 millimeter equivalent, or even longer, like a 100 millimeter equivalent, great. Give me a 3x zoom, a 4x zoom, a 5x zoom. But if you're giving me a 2x zoom, chances are pretty good I'm actually going to be getting better photo IQ from the main sensor cropping.
Absolutely.
And I feel like Realme is leaning into that in a very practical way. It saves costs on the manufacturing of the phone. You get better sensors for the other, because it's the main sensor, and there is an ultra wide, right?
there's an 8 megapixel ultra wide. It's
Right.
not going to be the most obvious, so it's there. It's
Right.
a decent one for.
I mean, it's a Realme. I'm not
Yeah.
expecting. Yeah, I'm not expecting like my Xiaomi Ultra or anything
All
like
right,
that.
just remember the phone starts about $399. It's not seriously. We're talking 200 megapixel camera.
$399. I mean, that's a lot, TK. That's
I know.
like
I know.
that's like the same as an iPhone SE. You have to give me way more if it's going to be worth it. Like you have to give me at least a Galaxy S21.
How about a 5,000 milliampere battery with 100-watt charging on it?
That sounds like a lot of numbers and stuff. I don't think that's what people want. I think they want like it just workingness and
When it
worth-itness.
comes to performance on this phone, I'll probably say that the best experience is going to be on that main sensor, and this is going to be one of those devices. Even the front-facing camera, I feel like, still does the standard overexposure, compensation for the face, trying to expose you correctly, but then blows everything out
Yeah.
in the background. But then you switch it over to the main sensor in the back, and then all of a sudden the phone can do it.
Yeah.
So
That's way better.
I took it with me with the fam last weekend. We were at Disneyland. I actually was last week. I was actually strutting. I not only did I go to New York, but I landed in LA and then didn't even go home. I went straight to Disneyland to meet up with the family.
Hooray!
So so we had a couple of days spending over California Adventure and Disney, and I love the fact that I had the phone with me. I had the opportunity to kind of shoot some content with it there, a little bit more dynamic coloring and just overall just fun time with the family. Very nice, very pleasantly surprised. If I'm not mistaken, the current launch right now is only in India, but there'll be a European launch coming up very soon. So there'll be more exposure, more variant. But the last thing I will say that this Realme has 12 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of internal storage
Wow.
on a mid-ranger.
Yeah.
That is something to be said. Realme,
I feel like we're
512.
Be,
Like what?
yeah, we mentioned this. What were we talking? It wasn't the Vivos.
No, it was Moto.
Was it?
Moto's knocking it out of the park as usual.
No, but what I mean is, we were talking about this a little while back that like after this 5G transition, because the year 5G started launching on mid-rangers, we kind of saw a lot of companies step back.
Yeah.
So you would use like a lower performance SoC, but maybe a newer SoC that had better support for these new modems and radios. But there was a transition. The costs were so high to incorporate the new antennas and the new radios.
Yep.
We lost performance on a lot of phones, or we were balancing, or prices were climbing in some phones, or blah 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 blah. And it really seems that post 5G whatever.
And I feel like we
We're
can now just
starting-
drop the word 5G. We don't really need to say the word. I mentioned only because it's on the box, but like, yeah.
Yeah, but and also like, is there any more like massive disappointment in the world of technology than all of the hype and promises of 5G that have never materialized?
For the most part, we're stuck in mid to low band, and I think that's the experience what 5G is.
But I think we're
Verizon's
gonna
vision
be-
is very limited. I would say, yeah,
and
for sure.
millimeter wave is great.
It's
if you
nice. It's
live-
nice when it works, but if
Oh,
as we've both tested in
Yeah.
LA, you'd have to be not only in the line of sight, but not even move. If you move,
I was
just
going to say, if you were in one condo in Japan, like
Yeah.
in the middle of Tokyo, millimeter wave is amazing.
dude, I found it was in Santa Monica in front of I want to say a Habit's Burger. It was that's where I got the best. We were testing the Xperia, right? Like we were testing
As
that,
long as I sit very still eating this burger with grilled onions, I will have incredible download speeds.
Absolutely.
But,
Not
but
upload.
the
But yeah.
the point I was
Sorry.
trying to make though is it seems like we're going to be in this continued holding pattern around in the mid range because there really isn't a very
Sorry.
good reason
Yeah,
to keep
let's do this here. Yeah.
like trying to massively boost performance. Like there's going to be sort of an upper mid-range tier that are going to be using like the new 7th gen chips.
Yeah.
But once you get to 400 and less,
Well,
I
that's
think we're
hard
going to
show that part.
see more of a fight when it comes to this idea of performance that the consumer of a $400 phone likely isn't looking for, but they will very much appreciate having a bigger battery, faster charging, and more storage.
Yeah.
So this to me, I think, is going to be the interesting fight where I feel like we're just going to be kind of in a holding pattern for years
Well,
as we sort of play around with those lifestyle features versus the high performance features.
and I feel like where this really kind of hits the spot is because it gives you the larger battery, it gives you the faster charging, but it also gives you 120 for the refresh rate that you'd expect. Like for that around
Yeah,
$500, like the model that I have with
for
the vegan
sure.
leather, obviously isn't the $399 model. That's closer to the $500. But when you get to that level, even at that $500 price tag, and I was mistaken. I do want to sorry, correct the 7050 processor is a rebranded 1080, and that's where I got confused. I kept calling it
Yeah.
the 10 1050. So MediaTek has been going through their rebranding because we didn't have a 7
Hmm.
series before, 7000 series. We used to have the 1000 series, and then for the longest time, we basically had starting having the 9000, and then we recently got the 8000, but then we still had that massive gap. So they're rebranding their 10 because the 1080 is technically more powerful than the 1200. So, certain ways
Right.
where things are. So, the experience that you're getting here is very smooth, it's very nice. Where the system or the device struggles a little bit is in that process when you're taking images at that 4 time zoom.
Sure.
It does need that extra second for it to process that content. It's a lot of data and it needs to churn through it. So as long as you're
And
not
it's
going in and clicking on the preview to see the image, you're fine.
yeah,
But the
you're
moment you
doing
click the
fine.
preview, you can see it doing its magic.
Sure. And,
Yeah.
and honestly, I mean, I don't know how precious we need to be about that when premium tier phones can often keep you in a holding pattern to process an image, and then we're like, oh, but this $400 phone should just do it immediately. Like, that's not how any of this works. But
No, no.
definitely catch this video. TK poured blood, sweat, and tears into getting this up on the internets for you all fine folks to
I got you
check
coast to
out.
coast coverage on that one. That's how good I am.
But again, it's like another entry in this range of mid-range phones from like $300 to $500,
Yeah.
which if we're talking average consumer and we're talking those daily driver, communicator, social media, good cameras, casual gaming experiences, boy howdy, can you buy a stupid amount of phone for like 400 bucks.
Dude, and a solid Call of Duty 60 frames per second. It's a solid 60 frames per second game.
Shut up.
It's super nice.
Shut
It's really,
your
really good.
darn face.
For all of our Call of Duty fans, if you are, you got it. We got you covered. It's really nice.
Shut up. No, I mean, but I mean, like, don't you feel? I'm sorry, I got to take this on a little tangent. Someone was making the joke, "Hey, $399, this is in Razer Edge territory." I am writing a letter to representatives at Qualcomm and Razer right now because my Razer Edge videos have done garbage traffic. And kind of the same as we were talking about my Ulanzi
Yeah, yeah.
video. That experience was a nightmare. And I really feel, unless you've got 1 million subscribers or more, that if the topic you're trying to talk about in a product-centric video is not already immediately popular, if there aren't a ton of people searching for it, YouTube is ready to chill. It's going to freeze your
Something
video.
has changed
And
in
something
the
has
algorithm.
changed.
Yeah,
And
something
this
has
is
definitely
this is
changed. Yeah.
dramatic. So I'm going through. Gary Explains did a video on the Razer Edge, and it got a fraction of his normal videos, of his normal traffic. ETA Prime did a video really showcasing some really clever ways to augment the capabilities of the Razer Edge. Did a fraction. He's got 1 million subscribers. It did a fraction. I think he got something like 50,000 views on that desktop video, and that is stupid. Because first of all, it's just a really good video on how to enhance a desktop mode for any device with a video output, and that's totally the people who would subscribe to his channel. But even what's her name, Jenna Zariak? I can't really
Hi,
pronounce her last
Justine.
name. No, Jenna,
Oh,
not
sorry,
Justine,
not Justine. Sorry. Yeah, no.
but Jenna.
Jenna.
She got like 15,000 views on her video of the Razer Edge.
Wow.
Like 15, not 50.
15.
Even that would be bad, but something is happening. And so we go through and you say something like, oh, I got like 60 frames per second in Call of Duty. I really feel like maybe we just need to stop with reviews and hammer the popularity of games and services. Oh, and here's this game running on this phone that YouTube won't let me make a video about because it's going to trash my channel. But instead I'm hanging out and talking about like whatever the new season is for Fortnite. Oh, and it's playing on the Razer Edge, or oh, I'm playing it on a Vivo V
I think we,
series,
yeah, I
or
remember
I'm
we,
doing
we talked
something
about
like
it.
that.
You mentioned that a while back when you were talking about like reviewing content or the devices like around albums or music,
Yeah.
music, things like that. I remember, yeah, no, um, I think so it's a double-edged conversation, right? It's what ends up happening. I think the way, at least I'm gathering the way the algorithm has shifted. If there's not a sudden interest in your own subscriber base, and it's not all of it, just the percentage that YouTube
So
decides
I
that
know
they're
where
going
you're
to
going
send
with
it to,
this, and I've
yeah.
been through way too many YouTuber guru like how
Oh,
to
it's not even that.
succeed
I'm just saying
in
it's
media.
tanked. Yeah, I'm
No,
just
but what
saying
I
it's
mean
tanked.
is that's how it used to be.
Yeah,
And there would be times where some of my videos would miss, but they'd still pick up traffic over time.
yeah,
Now a video is dead before it has a chance to get to my audience. So they
yeah,
have to be sampling 0.01% of my audience if I'm looking at my Ulanzi video,
yeah.
and then determining that no one else should really get that video pushed to them,
I
even the
think,
people who all smash the bell icon.
yep.
So something has changed where the video doesn't even have a chance with my subscribers before YouTube has decided that it's
I don't get the
totally dead.
concept of why is it that we cannot push content to the people that subscribe to us. Like,
Well,
like you
because
have
Google
members,
needs
right?
to
If you do
control all
memberships, you
that.
can be a
So there
member,
you go.
and then you have the ability of pushing direct content to them. But the actual people that do subscribe, the people that are causing you to be where you are, and throughout the years they've been with you, you're not able to push the content to them, and it's a very tough conversation where the platform that's supposed to help you is the one that's hindering you. So it's a weird thing. I know, I'm with you. It's a tough conversation, and I
But
always hope that at some
sure,
point, as you said, it picks up again. But
no,
not
but it's
everything
not.
does. Yeah, some of
So
them don't. Though.
and
Some of them
and
are when they're dead, they're dead.
yeah. Now
Shorts.
I
Yeah.
used to feel like I could give this some time and it'll be a long tail video. I put some work into this. It's going to be fine. And eventually, as people search for these topics, it's going to be great. But now it's after we've decided that your video has outlived its usefulness, it's gone.
Yeah.
So I changed all of the titles on my Unreal
Oh,
glasses videos. Those Xreal videos are not getting any significant bump with all of the news about Xreal changing their name, with the Xreal Beam coming out, with
yeah,
other augmented reality products sucking all the air out of the room. All of those videos would normally have gotten some kind of uplift.
yeah.
But you know what video is hitting really hard for me right now? Is my Moto Edge Plus 2022 video.
Because of the Moto Edge Plus 2023.
So Google
yeah,
is pushing that. And that's
yeah.
one of my highest, beyond some of the more recent videos that I've published, like the Sony videos are doing pretty well right now.
No, of course.
But that's the video that's finding some kind of second, because no one else made videos about the Moto Edge Plus 2022. So it's me.
I think you did a lot more coverage than most of us, and I think that to a certain point, because
Wow.
you
I
also
feel
kept
attacked.
it. No. You kept the
that cut
phone.
me to the
That was
quick,
the other
sir.
thing. You still had the phone at the end of the day, and it was a weird conversation for me because, like, okay, I get sometimes when PR companies are limited on units, right? And I get that.
Yeah.
We had the same experience with the OnePlus Pad. But what I mean with us is, especially for content creations and for people like us, that when we like a piece of tech and we want to live with this piece of tech for an extended amount of time, it does kind of clip our wings a little bit when we don't have access to it. And no, I absolutely envy what you have, but I've also switched over to the Edge Plus. This
Yeah.
is my main phone now, and people are like, "Why did you leave the Pixel? Like, how would you leave Pixel 7 Pro? Like, isn't that the best thing?" I was like, "No, I'm not disagreeing with what Pixel can do. I'm going to be honest,
Those are
and
really good work
it actually
phones.
it does, dude. For every day and everything that I need it to do, it does absolutely fantastic. Battery life is better. Charging speed obviously is faster. Overall performance and the Gen 2 on this has been screaming. I've been rendering, cutting video, doing many things with it. It does everything I want it to do. The cameras are pretty decent. They're not going to beat obviously the 13 Ultra or the Find X6 Pro.
Yeah, but if
But
you
I
can't
carry
get
the
a good
13 Ultra
shot-
with me, so if I really
Yeah,
want to take
exactly.
photos.
So-
I was never taking pictures with the 7 Pro
Yeah.
anyways. I kind of moved on to the 1-inch sensor of life, as I would like to say.
But I do want to just really quickly, if
Yeah.
you can't get a good photo out of a current Moto Edge or Moto Edge Plus, the problem isn't the phone. Okay?
Yeah, I know.
That's definitely a user problem. I would absolutely rank the Moto Edge Plus 2022 as the weakest premium tier camera on a phone, or I should say premium tier phone camera of 2022. It is still incredibly easy for me to get very good photos out of that phone.
This
Oh,
is
see,
a
that
low light image straight
if
at.
if only that had come from an iPhone, and then I would be able to say that it was a good photo. But TK, I know what phone
no.
shot it, so now I have to say that it's not a good photo.
The
Actually, that
images,
is really nice. I
the
like the way
color.
that
No,
it's playing with the color of the lighting.
yeah, and the reflection of the material that the performer was wearing, they had. So the weird thing is, Moto last week during the launch, they incorporated the Razor Plus and the Razor and the Razor Plus into the performance. So all of the Cirque du Soleil
Oh,
performers,
that's cool.
they had them like on their outfit, and then at one point they did the Power Ranger thing on top, and I was like, oh my god, we need two more. You only have three.
Nerd.
You're messing with me right now. My childhood is crumbling, And where is the Dragon Zord? No, it's kidding. It's just like it was fun. The the Razor for me, I mean, I don't have the Razor, but I mean the Edge Plus 2023 has substantially certain amount of improvements over last year when it comes to spec bump, but it definitely
Sure.
did lose that pen input. That was my biggest thing when I
Yeah,
found
yeah.
out that they chose to take that out. I felt like, oh my god, that was like the one thing that made this like such a super device. Because now you fix the thermal issues, you're still giving us that unthrottled, just do whatever you want to do with it kind of a
Sure.
thing. You still have that ready for and still all the improvements. So like all that, that's all I wanted. Like I was gonna say, keep it at $899, but just give us the new SoC with it. And it was a decision that was made obviously to try to bring down the price, but the overall
Hmm.
experience. The 2022 is still a solid performer if you're looking for
Yeah, it's
pen
good
for pen support with it. Outside of the
for sure.
stylus series, because they did upgrade the stylus. I think the stylus 5G and the stylus 4G for 2023. But Motor's been doing really good. Like I'm impressed with what they're offering with the Razer Plus,
Yeah.
as well as the Razer. I hope I get a chance to play with them. They're going to be available hopefully very soon. I know the
Hmm.
European market PR content creators over there all have them. They're all enjoying them, and we're like, that looks nice. That looks pretty. I got to play with it for like a couple of hours last week, but yeah,
Well, we should probably kind of have a pivot because I mean we can always relitigate Motorola.
I
Just the experiences have been so good, and I think
yeah
that's
yeah.
part of the disappointment is it's a company that is not paying for advertising.
It
So it doesn't matter how good their products are. Consumers aren't as interested in them, which
because
means
they
there's
don't see it
less.
in the yeah. Google had the same issue. Google had the same issue till they decided to
So they
bump up
dropped
the
hundreds of millions of
100
dollars on
exactly.
advertising. Yeah,
Once you start seeing, like I'm
and
getting
if
TikToks
that's
of the Pixel Fold now. Like everybody's like saying, how do you take
yeah,
pictures with the phone on the back, the best camera on the back, and you need a fold for them. Like no, you just turn the
you
phone.
just turn
That's
the
how you
phone
do it. Yeah, I was
around.
gonna like they've been doing it for years, but anyways, yeah,
I mean,
it is a
I
budget
had a
situation.
little Nokia candy bar phone that I would had a little mirror on the back of the phone if I
So
needed
you're
training wheels.
saying I
But
could do this? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
so
yeah.
speaking of using better cameras, like using the rear cameras on your phone, I mean, I'm sure you spent all your time with the Sony just taking selfies, right?
Dude, that's
And
all I
just
do. You know me, you know how
right.
I do it. I got to try different styles. I think at the time, right before I turned it back, I had my beard in blue, so I was going that Super
Nice.
Saiyan blue color. So obviously,
That's
yes,
perfect. Yeah.
tons of selfies with a front-facing camera, and the main
And that's
camera on
it.
the back.
Because it's the only thing that you would ever want to do on a $1,500 phone is use the worst camera on that phone.
Unfortunately, that's how life is. It is the
For sure.
worst of the worst. No, but I mean, the improvements that we've seen on Xperia year over year have definitely have improved the experience. But I still feel like you're right. The main sensor on the back, regardless of what phone you're using, companies focus their best processing
Hmm.
experience on those sensors, and I want to say almost intentionally, and I'm not speaking Sony, I'm speaking like in general, intentionally
Right.
cripple the front experience to some reason. I don't know why. And it's basically just yeah, very few companies like Moto, not to bring them back, but they do 4K 60 on the front. Sony does 4K 60 now on the front on the One Mark V. So I'm happy to see some options on the market, but
But
still.
it's kind of funny to me. Like we need a hashtag. You know, bring
Main cam, main,
manual, bring pro mode to the front camera. It's the worst hashtag ever, but we need to set it up.
or
So
maybe bring promo to some phones in general, kind of thing. But yes, no, I know what you're talking about. Right?
yeah, a little bit. Well, that's not an issue with Sony phones, except for that front-facing camera, where you don't really have the pro mode on that. But
Nope.
both of us got to spend some time. I mean, we sent our Sonys back a little while ago, so we're just wrapping up the videos that we were able to shoot ahead of
It's a tough. Yeah, I still have
sending
one
that
more video
back.
that I'm going to be putting out hopefully next week.
But we've been getting a lot. Both of us have been getting
Yeah.
a lot of questions about performance and the concerns over thermal throttling, and Sony's always overheat. And I feel like both of us are inclined to test that in different ways. And I was wondering, I know you've got another video that's coming out, so don't go spoiling something. If it's going to be in the video, you should all be subscribed to TK's channel and watching his stuff.
Absolutely.
But
And make sure. Yeah.
you get a Sony phone, and what are your expectations of testing its longevity for a task? And what might that task be? I mean, like, are you looking at gaming stuff? Are you looking at photography stuff? Are you looking at mixed workloads or data connectivity?
A little bit.
What do you do to see if you can tank a phone in general, but also specifically a Sony?
So in general, my focus on most devices is basically just general usage of what I do. I am a heavy user of a smartphone. Whichever phone I'm holding, I am definitely pulling more resources out of it that I typically would say from even a standard, like, my son or even my wife uses their phone. I do primarily, a good part of my day is listening to content on it, on basically using the Bluetooth radios. How does the Bluetooth performance play for music? But it's the other thing where I start shooting content because we use our devices to, the best camera is going to be the one that's in your hand. And that's what I try to make it be whenever I'm testing it. So camera performance for video, for still photography, what are the modes that we have in there to push the content? And then a little bit of editing content for reels, shorts type style editing on the on device. I've done a few device videos, like full length video editing on a phone where I've had my battery die on me in the past, but I typically focus more short style video content on that and how quickly I'm able to produce, upload to the internet and get that running. That's literally a big part of my life. Connectivity, as you were saying, it's a big thing. Can I get the connection speed that I want? Can I upload as fast as I can, especially large files, 1.5, 1.7 gigs? When I was in New York last week, I was uploading from my phone. The internet at the hotel sucked. That's a big thing for me. Like, I need to know that I can get the best. And especially with T-Mobile, because we have that mid-band, now we're able to get some better speeds. And then
Good.
obviously the ability of seeing how long I'm able to withstand being able to play games, especially Call of Duty and PUBG Mobile that are typically going for, 30, 40, 45 minutes. And if you play a couple of matches of PUBG, you're into the hour and a half easy, especially if you're making it to the end. So I'm hoping on some of those matches I'm doing well. And I typically go between 30 to 45 minutes on those. And thermals are an issue for me. That last year I'm not going to say
We had a lot of problems.
We had a
last
lot
year.
of problems with the 8 Gen 1. And a lot of people saw that, and that was a concern. The big thing for me with Sony this year is I do personally see, and I'm going to bring in kind of to Sony for me, is I see the thermal improvements. There is better thermal management on this device. The HS power control does work better, and I love the fact that I was able to use an external source to be able to give me power and still be able to play for an extended amount of time. And that was the improvements that I saw there. The 4K 60 recording on this, and with native support to what they call the endurance mode with live streaming, was very nice. So the optimizations that Sony did over last year, and I feel like I'm really happy that they listened to us. They've come to fruition. I mean, it's better. It's definitely better. And it does get a little bit warm, but it's not as warm as we were getting in last year. It's not intolerable when you're playing like Undead Horde for an extended amount of time and you have a full legion kind of going around with you and so on. So for me, those are the type of things. It's like a little bit of everything. I don't try to focus on one because it needs to be an all-rounder. It can't be just a one-trick pony. Like some devices are for me like that, but like a Sony, it's a whole shebang.
I agree. I feel like Sony's don't quite bring the more. How do I want to say this? Well, I mean, we were just talking about Motorola. I don't feel like Sony's bring quite the same flavor of productivity that a Motorola or a Galaxy Note are going to bring. But
That's
they bring
an area they still
sort
need
of.
that. Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of phones, especially as we're looking at an economy where people are relying on computing devices more and more, and all of these things are getting horrifically expensive. I think more devices should be bringing better computer-style productivity tools to the table.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's something Sony doesn't particularly play with. That's
No.
not where they're investing their software engineer teams. And it is a very interesting hard split between the PlayStation camp and the Sony Alpha camp.
Yeah.
So you've got a whole team of engineers at Sony that are all about cameras, and then you have a whole team of engineers that are all about PlayStation.
Yeah.
And they both occupy parts of the phone, but they're wholly separate experiences. Like, there's no unified Sony vibe. It's, if you're a photographer and you really love digging into content creation and you want the best possible tools for some crazy 4K video recording or photography, or especially sports and action photography, you get a Sony.
Yeah.
Also, do you want some of the best gaming phone features that are available outside of an Asus ROG? Well, you also get a Sony.
Yeah, no,
it's so bizarre how distinct and how different those experiences are on the exact same phone.
And I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people still, it's hard to kind of just summarize it, but you're right. There are still some areas, although we get improvements year over year. I mean, and again, hardware and software improvements, and definitely very well. I would say a good part of the features that we got this year were very welcome. 4K 60 on the front. We have endurance mode built into the system. The onboard recording, the basically video input recording straight on device. Yeah. A lot of those things I feel like are speaking to creators, speaking to people that love using and doing more with their devices. I still would love to see a native editing solution. It's like it's a powerhouse of content
audio
creation.
App is so good. I want them to give us basic multi-tracking video editing.
Yeah,
I want that Sony
even just
flavor.
open it. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, so I'll say Sony's leverages a lot of what Google does when it comes to the software experience.
Oh, yeah.
They are not there. I will probably put them in somewhat of the Moto camp a little bit. It's close to stock with a few modifications, but typically they don't try to change much on the software experience. Really, it's more on the,
much at all.
Yeah,
I mean, it's SideSense.
Exactly.
That's about it.
And I think one of the things I appreciated about that is we are able to have video out. So they didn't skimp on that part.
For sure.
We have video output there. So you're able to use Nreals, you're able to use TCL glasses, any kind of XR or AR glasses, you'll be able to use. And I think that's one benefit there. But we are obviously, we don't have ready for. We don't have that simultaneous easy. You plug it in and bam, you're ready to go. Turn on your shows, turn on your games. Heck, use it as a webcam. Natively, that's just not something that is in there. You can. Sony will allow you to do it if you install their application, but you need to know how to do that setup. But at the end of the day, I feel like this is something that needs a little bit of work. But I feel like everything has something a little bit where they can improve.
Sure.
The price is a little bit better. The storage went down a little bit, but I still feel like it's a powerhouse, and it definitely is a niche product.
I really want to give them the props on. We've got a whole conversation going on about LG phones, and I feel it was one of the classic travesties of tech reviewing, where tech reviewers panned the V60 after it came out $200 cheaper than the V50 and was essentially better in every way. Like, it's got a 1080p screen. That means it's a mid-ranger, said some tech reviewer with way more subscribers than I have. This move from the Xperia 1 Mark IV to the Xperia 1 Mark V is one of the all-time best, reducing the price but not savaging all of the features on the phone.
Exactly.
Because the biggest change, the biggest downgrade is storage and then support for some flavors of 5G.
Again,
we have never seen a phone cut that much off the price and improve the main camera sensor, improve the thermal performance with a better SoC. I mean, it's one part Qualcomm and a small part Sony's engineers.
Of course.
Like, everything else got better. Significantly better.
The price got better.
And the price got better. So I really feel like that is an absolutely critical conversation point, because again, it's like this phone is going to get reviewed in a vacuum where people, it's so too expensive because there are other phones that do less that are
that's
cheaper.
The other thing. A lot of people are reviewing the phone. It's not even out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyone
review?
who's saying review needs to be reprimanded. But I do want to, before we leave this
Yeah.
this conversation, because I do want to talk about like my camera test here for just a little bit.
Actually, that's what I was hoping. Yeah.
What were some of your experiences? Again, not getting too granular or anything that you might give up in another video, but what were some of your thermal experiences gaming? Because I don't play COD and I don't play Fortnite. So
Well,
when I'm
and
talking
surprise-
about gaming,
Yeah.
it's a bunch of indie titles that no one searches for, so my videos aren't very popular.
Thermals on the phone, I was hitting about 109, 110 in the middle. Like that was the hottest I was able to get it. About
Okay.
5 to 7 degrees less than what we saw last year, and
easy. Yeah.
the thermals were always centered in the back of the phone. So most of the time when I'm playing on it, because one of the other things that the Sony has that most devices don't, it's a longer form factor that
Yeah.
remote style the experience where you're always outside. Your hands are outside of the center part where most of the heat is generated. So with combination of HS power control, I think I got around like 104 to 105, and without
That's
it, it's
really
like
good.
basic 109, 110, and it did not hit the close to what we saw last year with the heat. Extended shooting, when I'm using endurance mode, I could have gone for hours. This is just like ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like you could just turn it on, set it up, as long as you're not sitting in the sun. And we haven't had that. Luckily, this time when we tested it,
Right.
so historically, whenever we've gotten to the Xperia to test year over year, it's always been hot in LA, right?
Yeah.
But this year, like the heat just didn't get the
Got
call or
weird.
something.
It got real weird.
It was weird, but we had better weather. For me, content capture was definitely one of the big pluses. But I felt like this is something that they started with the 1 Mark IV last year with endurance mode, because they did push out that update so that you can use it with the grip. Sony doesn't have a problem letting the phone run hot. It knows the hardware can handle it. The issue was always about making it too hot for us to handle by hand. And that was where I felt like the conversation wasn't clear. And now we're able to see it. Like when you go into streaming, because not only does it tax your display, the ISP, the processor, the battery drain, all of those things kicking in at the same time. The phone gets hot. They built an endurance mode that disables it basically allows it to run warmer. And even with those experiences, as long as you have it in a grip, it's pretty good. So the improvements are very nice, and the thermals are actually
and we want to showcase
tangible
that
improvement.
against, especially from the gaming perspective, from the gaming conversation. We want to showcase that against both of our experiences with Red Magic.
Oh man,
We both played with different flavors of the Red Magic 7 with the 8 Gen 1, not the 8 Plus Gen 1.
No, I had the
And
7, and I think you had the 7 Pro.
I have the 7 Pro.
Yeah.
When
I think we were like 123
really,
on that one.
I think one of our top temperatures was like 127.
It was, and I want to say it was Undead
I was
Horde.
close to 130.
It was Undead Horde at 120 frames per second for about 10 minutes, and we started
and it was
yeah,
nuclear hot.
yeah.
So again,
yeah.
like knowing what the 8 Gen 1 can be capable of, and that's a phone with an active, I mean, again, anyone who doesn't know this, or maybe you're catching the audio replay or something like that, the Red Magic phones have fans built into them like laptops or desktops.
Yeah.
There's active cooling, which actually lets the chip run hotter. Then
it's
you
intended,
would plug
yeah.
in a cable so it would bypass the battery so the chip could run hotter.
Red Magic's like, here's the
Everything you would do to
hottest.
cool the phone would let it run hotter.
The more you were able to manage the 8 Gen 1. And I feel like Red Magic and I want to say mobile, almost would say ROG and Red Magic last year with the 8 Gen 1 had the best approach to managing the SoC. I don't think it was a perfect solution on either, because Red Magic, even though with the built-in cooling, the fan in the device, they also had external coolers that you could mount, like the Peltier type of style coolers on the back. And those are kind of also a little bit of a mixed bag. If you were powering the fan from the phone, the temperatures went hotter because you're drawing power much faster and the batteries got warmer. If you connected it to an external power source, you were able to get better performance, as you said. The more you cool it,
for
the more
Lyndon
it pushes
in our chat, my hottest run on the 7 Pro, the Red Magic 7 Pro, was nearly 53 degrees Celsius. If that helps, since it's always so difficult to talk in freedom units with an international audience. That is a concern. It is uncomfortable.
You can't hold the phone. Yeah, you can't.
Hold
it's
that,
just,
especially from the screen side where you're controlling the game on the screen. So I spent my time mostly focused on content creation, and I produced a video. You can catch the video on my YouTube channel,
Well,
or also on my website or my Patreon. Um,
early access
I
always on the Patreon. That's the nice part.
early access. I mean, I actually just did another video early access right before we went live. So there's a tablet review on the Patreon right now. Actually, not. I
And
shouldn't say tablet review. There's a sponsored video which I am still working out the last details with, but I am going early access on the
I gotta
Patreon.
up my my subscription
So
fee because apparently I'm not at the tier for that yet. But yeah, I gotta
yeah,
change it.
the early access is a specific tier, but everyone gets all the good stuff on the Patreon. Just sometimes it takes
Yeah,
a little bit longer.
absolutely.
But I recreated my test from last year where we were looking at 4K 60 video recording and 4K 120
Of
video
course.
recording. And this was a frustrating year for the 4K 120 because it's only Sony right now.
It's
There is another Axon, but it seems to only have been released in China, and it doesn't seem to be any significant change except for going to an 8 Plus Gen 1. So the Axon 40 Ultra has an 8 Gen 1. The Axon 50, I believe, is just an 8 Plus Gen 1, and the rest of the phone looks like it might be the same.
okay.
The other phone that could do 4K 120 was the OnePlus 10 Pro. That feature has been removed from the
Yeah.
OnePlus 11 to keep costs lower. So it was basically just Sony versus Sony recording 4K at 120 frames per second. But the 4K 60 test was a lot of fun because I put 6 phones up in a line comparing 8 Gen 1 against 8 Plus Gen 1 against 8 Gen 2 against Tensor 2 and against the Dimensity 9200.
Nice.
And as you might have imagined, if anyone is in this chat right now, I'm sure they probably would have guessed, but the chips that were made by Samsung failed the fastest, and all of the chips that were made by TSMC performed much, much better. So this also runs true for Sony, where going from the Xperia 1 Mark IV to the Xperia 1 Mark V, we saw significant improvements to video recording on that generational. I can break down all the numbers and like this phone recorded for 30 minutes and this phone recorded for an hour. I got that a whole separate video so you can listen to me prattle on about all of
If
that.
you
But
like
the
to
main
geek out about the
takeaway,
numbers, but yeah, no.
but the main takeaway, Sony is benefiting, just like everyone. I feel like Samsung owes a written letter of apology to the entire tech industry, like every manufacturer that they interacted with, over their performance making chips last year. I feel like all of our
We went for 2
problems
years of running hot chips. The 888 and the 8 Gen 1
were
both
Samsung.
were Samsung, and they both are. And it's just such an easy. And I'll also say the fact that Moto decided to
So
go with the
easy.
8 Plus Gen 1, like even with companies that are going back and using earlier
Yeah.
SoCs, they're using the right one. They're
TSMC.
picking the TSMC.
Yeah.
It's the right one to go, and the 8 Plus Gen 1 is the right beginning to that story. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you were able to showcase it, and I think overall the performance is noticeably better and tangible. It's not just a numbers thing. You can feel it in your hands when when the temperatures are not scorching to the point where you're cooking stuff, but you
What's
still enjoy the
interesting
game.
to me though is like it's not like the 8 Gen 2 doesn't get hot. It still gets hot.
Oh no,
But
I know.
even in a window where like I'm in the middle of this 4K 60 test and I'm trying to run each phone out for an hour, I mean the difference might be 4 or 5 degrees, which is a bit. That's quite a bit.
Yeah, especially if
But
you're up there.
in a window of 4 to 5 degrees, the Samsung chips are throwing up warnings. You're about to thermal throttle. We're shutting off other parts of the phone. We're scaling back this activity. You are running close to your video clip failing or degraded performance. And all of the Samsung chip, all of the TSMC chips are fine. Like they're still running over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and some of them hitting like I think one of the hottest I saw. Again, all of this is kind of not scientific because we're using laser thermometers on glass displays. So whatever the real temperature is, this is just a ballpark. Like
Close enough,
it's not precise. But even for that, it's not precise in the same way for every phone. You know, it's kind of the same kind of
Well, because the
imprecision. So
not all hardware
we
is
can kind of
placed in
trust
the
that.
same spot, and the heat dissipation
But
is
in
not going to be.
finding
Yeah.
where heat is generated on a reflective surface is going to make the reading from a laser thermometer less accurate. I get all that, but it's kind of less accurate in the same way for every phone. But with a 3 to 5 degree difference between generations of chips, we see the HN2 handling that much better. Fewer dropped frames, fewer fluid frame rates where they have to play with the frame rate to kind of keep processing in check, and less degraded performance. And so again, it's just sort of a win-win-win all the way around. To bring this back to Sony specifically, I really feel like you and I should start bugging the Sony engineers to let us record poorer quality video. I'm not being funny or exaggerating.
Okay.
When I started looking at the file sizes of 4K 60 video from the Xperia 1 Mark IV and the Xperia 1 Mark V, those phones are processing 2 to 3 times more information per second
Yep.
than other premium tier
Especially when you
smartphones.
talk about 4K 120, and what we're talking about is actually 4K 120. It's not upscaled, so
Yeah.
even you're not upscaling the content. It's actually shooting that many.
Yeah, you're not interpolating frames to fake
reach up.
4K 120. No,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really 4K 120 at an insanely high bit rate. So a bunch of people were trying to tag me. Wait a minute, but if it's a bigger file, then it's not doing the compression as well. So isn't that a bad thing? And you're like, you're an idiot, and I don't think I can take the time to explain in the comments just how dumb you are.
Oh
But
my God.
writing that much information to storage and operating the camera's buffer at that tier where it is moving
And it's
that much
clearing that much
information
information off the buffer. Yep, exactly.
is an incredible challenge that many of our standalone mirrorless cameras cannot achieve with the same kind of reliability. I
It's
need
crazy.
to talk to Sony and say, I need a, it's like VHS, right? You know, like I need a long form recording mode where I know I'm recording significantly lower video data rate quality, but it's going to take up half as much storage per second.
More
And
storage
it won't,
efficient, friendly, more storage friendly bit rate.
even with memory
video.
cards, there are going to be situations out in the field where you're going to want to buffer against that. Maybe save yourself a little bit of battery life for how much information is being processed and saved, transferred to your storage. I think this is. It took us 5 generations of Sonys for them to finally give us focus peaking.
Yeah,
So I
I
feel
know.
if you and me both start bugging them about this today, by the Xperia 1
my
Mark
7?
11,
11.
we should have a lower bitrate mode.
I
on an
love
Xperia.
how your game plan has an actual like setback schedule. Like I'm like, no, I'm totally with you. No. I'm totally with you. I will say this, if I do have the opportunity, or if we both have the opportunity this year to attend one of their events. I know there was a local event not that, like a few days ago, not that like
Yeah.
a few weeks ago, more focused around their cinema areas and so on, not necessarily mobile. But if there isn't a mobile experience section where we're able to talk to their engineers, I definitely will be. That would be one of my things. Last year, I harped out at, as much as I could endurance mode. I needed that function to
Yep.
be front and center, not built into an accessory that nobody buys. Or if I mean, I'll say this: even if you bought the accessory, you probably didn't even realize that the accessory did this function. But it was an accessory that caused the function to work on the Xperia 1 Mark IV. Now, luckily, I have that grip, but because I've used it on many different devices.
Oh, yeah.
But the biggest thing about it is now it's built in, it's native, and they listen. This is the biggest thing. Like they actually listen to feedback. You have to
So I-
appreciate that
I-
as a company
I love
when they
Sony.
do that. Yeah.
I love Sony because in any one generation of their products,
Yeah.
they are they're the most like boldly arrogant, they know better than everyone else, this is how we wanted to make our phone, no compromises on our vision.
Exactly.
And our phone is different than everyone else, and there's always that air of, well, everyone else has it wrong, we're Sony.
Yeah. We are.
You own
we
a
are
Sony and you feel like
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, yeah.
But you do feel like part of the Sony club. It is a very unique, very niche, very small community.
It's But it's
But
enjoyable. Yeah,
to what you're talking about,
yeah.
if there is sort of a consistent pressure on a feature or something that would benefit one of their two main disciplines, gaming or photography and video, that's where we've seen these incredible changes over the last 2 years. The game mode is one of the best
year
esports
year over
style.
year, hands down. Yep. And
I mean, like,
you can shoot high frame rate. That's the other thing I think a lot of people don't
yeah,
realize. You can shoot 120 frames per second video at 720p on the Xperia to record your content if you want to share it.
yeah,
If you're playing those level of games, like it's not
yes.
uncalled for. Most other
But
phones, they cap you at 90 or a 60. But yeah.
most cap you at 60. A
Yeah,
few
yeah, yeah.
give you options. The gaming phones give you options to at least
Push
bump
it.
up the frame rate if the game
Yeah,
is
yeah.
actually supporting it. But Sony stands alone in one of the least gaming phone style packages, which is actually one of the best gaming phones that you can use. That was clumsy. It sounded better in my head.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. They got when they started really going after like mobile esports, and they struck deals with like Call of Duty and
PUBG.
Fortnite and PUBG.
Well, yeah, no,
And
Call of Duty and PUBG for both, they have partnerships with them.
that's
Call of
right.
Duty for the longest time,
But
and you,
that's what I mean is,
yeah.
in listening to the responses from players on those games, that's when we saw these substantial changes to Sony's game mode and all of the individual granular controls for how you can adjust the touch sensitivity, the thermal output. Like, you can tell the phone, run hotter. That's what I want you to do, and the phone will just do it.
Yep.
And then the actual feedback where you go into that menu and it's showing you the power in and out and the sort of
As
the
it's consuming
approximate
power.
wattage
Yeah.
of what's going in and what's going out is unlike anything I've ever seen on another device, even these other really high spec gaming phones that can do like charge separation and stuff. So, to finish my point, if you ask Sony in 1 year for a feature, they're going to kind of blink at you and laugh. But if you kind of keep putting some pressure on them for 2 or 3 years, hopefully we'll actually see that substantive change. So if everybody here just starts asking Sony for 4K 60 frame per second video at like a 60 megabit per second data rate, we'll eventually get it, in 2027?
I think so. Yeah. Well, I think it's the good thing is that they listen, and as long as we keep providing them the feedback that it is something that
Sure.
people are looking for, I think that's the biggest thing. I think for me, the next big thing that I probably would love to see is more, like I said, the ability of cutting video, content creation from there,
Oh,
from
yeah,
that sense,
yeah.
putting together all the resources, the great audio,
Yeah.
the great video that you're able
sure.
to record, but create from it using, let's say, obviously I'm not saying like bring back other licensing stuff like that for their editing software, but like some type of basic solution, something that is built in that you're able to put multi-track, basic fades, cut and fades in there. So it's just something that if you want to be able to throw something quickly and upload it on the go, you're able to do it from the phone. And if you want to maybe throw in like a desktop experience,
You know what's interesting to me is I bet you there are Sony engineers that are probably pitching that right now. But video is surprisingly better covered on mobile than audio.
yeah.
There are so few Android applications to tackle better audio editing, and that's actually somewhere where Sony stands apart. But yeah, we could put all this money into giving you a really good editing solution, but if it's sort of a basic social media style, well, there's CapCut. Do you want something more granular? Well, you can do LumaFusion.
Yeah.
So
LumaFusion runs really nice,
unfortunately,
by the way. Yeah.
oh, it runs so well. And especially LumaFusion plugged into another monitor. And now that you can support video out to the monitor while you edit on the phone, oh, chef's kiss.
Yep.
But I believe that's why Sony gave us these really in-depth multi-tracking audio recording and editing tools. I'm hoping that they will give us. I'd love to see Sony's flavor of that video editing now that we've seen their audio app. But I bet you that's not a high priority for them given what is already available. Like, I feel like
It's a solution. You're right. It can be leveraged. Their audio solution was unique. I feel like, honestly, outside of Huawei smartphones and maybe Pixels, a little bit better with Pixels, I feel like very few other devices were focusing on that audio, that quality audio, the ability of capturing that audio experience. Sony was definitely next level with that one, and the solution that they have is very intuitive, very simple. Audio for music and audio, especially for voiceover, one of the best solutions, hands down. Like to be able to just do a voiceover in any environment, almost as magical as when you try to use that voice focus in DaVinci. Once I discovered that function, I was like, oh my God. I could be in a room with like 1,000 drums, and it's like suddenly it's like, it's just TK talking to you on the mic. Welcome back to the episode. Like, I'm like, wow. Like, whoa. Okay. So yeah,
good.
no, I'm
And
with
then
you.
we could probably burn a whole extra hour talking. DaVinci Resolve, the beta, is so good.
Bring
But
me my yeah. Oh my God! Don't get me with betas. And I've been using the Photoshop. Okay, I'll say this: my license for Adobe hasn't expired because it was prepaid
Right.
for a year, and I decided to try the Photoshop beta with the AI fill tool. And I will say this is my last thing. The video that I pushed out last week for the motos, I made a mistake and I did not shoot a wide enough picture for the cover pictures. The cover pictures were too close up. So whenever I tried to do 16 by 9, it was just like, oh, this is such a weird format. Jumped into Photoshop, jumped in, and I gave it the key term. I said, just fill in the exact same pattern as the table in the open space. I didn't say anything else. I wasn't trying to say add spaceships and bullets and whatever.
sure.
It filled it in like crazy AI processing, but that level of experience and what we're getting with with DaVinci, with content, the ability of transcribing, the ability of just getting a better
It's
processing, and it's crazy how
it's
much better
cool.
it is,
Yeah.
and it just like, oh my God. And on the M2, oh my God, DaVinci and the it's not even M2, DaVinci and M1 Max. Like
Good.
it's a marriage made in heaven. It's a
We
marriage
just
in
need
heaven
to
that I haven't even wanted to try to turn on a
we
desktop to
just
try to edit on.
need him to bring some kind of acknowledgement of an Adreno GPU. And
We
I'd
need
love to see if we could get DaVinci, cranking on one of these like
ATX. Yeah, no,
little
exactly.
Windows on ARM
There,
solutions.
I'm hoping at Summit this year with whatever Orion's solution ends up being, it ends up getting the adoption that it needs. The biggest issue that we have isn't the fact that the technology is not there; it's the adoption rate. It's
Yeah,
the
it's people.
it's when companies and developers, especially for content
Sure.
creation type tools, do they basically value like, okay, does this make sense to put that much power into producing a title that may or may not sell?
Hmm.
On the iPad that they released, Final Cut, I think, and then they released it as a subscription service. But then what's it called? DaVinci Resolve is not a subscription service. You could just get that and run it. It is a separate license. It doesn't run in the same license that you buy for your desktop, but
Yeah.
it still runs. And I feel like the solution from what we get there is that buy once, enjoy for forever kind of a solution
Right.
is so rare and so enjoyable. Like I cannot say good enough things about it, and so happy I've left
Well,
the,
thinking of
the
things
old
that
realm.
you can't say enough good things about,
Oh
we
yeah,
should
yeah.
probably
Let's talk.
shift gears and talk about Apple.
Yeah, I love that. I
So,
love Apple.
that's probably where we should go next.
We should. It's been an hour
Here,
and
let me.
seven. Everybody's been waiting. It's like, dang it, dude. When you said you were keeping it last, you
I'll be
meant
curious.
last.
Honestly, I mean, like with our viewers, it could be. It could be a coin flip. It could be a toss up. I mean, I'll be really curious to see what people's sort of thoughts are on this kind of stuff. I
Ooh,
was
I did not install it on my
way
watch.
more interested
Hmm.
and excited about some of the more mundane
Yeah.
announcements at WWDC. And I have been hypercritical of their presentation for what everybody else is glowing all over from WWDC. So I just kind of want to start us off. This is the actual Apple site that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, WatchOS 10.
WatchOS
It's in
10.
beta currently. Yep.
Bullet point it right now. Is there anything on WatchOS 10 that you're really feeling is?
I,
Is there anything there that's lighting you up?
right now, I think just the interfaces, the widgets overall. I think the smoothness of the UI overall, it runs very nice. I loaded it up on my Watch 7, and it's not. I mean, it wasn't like earth shattering. It still doesn't drive me to try to use it. I bought the watch a while back primarily just to kind of get the latest and greatest from Apple. I didn't go for the Ultra, but I think overall it's nice to see that they're still, giving some love to the watch operating system and improving it year over year. I think to a certain point, if I was a heavier user of an Apple Watch, I probably would have appreciated it more. And I'll be very honest, I'm more of a Wear OS or Wear type of a solution. But I'm intrigued to see what are those options. And I'm not going to lie, I will every once in a while just test it out with my 13 Pro Max. But it sits 90% of the time on the
But
charger.
it has updates for cyclists, and
Yes.
you have e-bikes, so shouldn't you only be using Apple Watches now?
I should, if I was
I mean,
cycling,
we
though.
have
If I cycle.
bicycling. We have
No, no, I
bicycling
know.
tracking on our Wear OS watches. I mean, I don't think that that's been anything.
Nobody covers that. No, cycling doesn't count on Wear OS, my friend. It only counts on Apple. No. I
All right,
think
moving
the
right
biggest
along.
thing, I think the approach was, it's definitely nice. They've definitely leveraged a lot of it, and I feel like it's a good solution for people that love. I think in Europe,
Right.
in Asia, cycling is a lot more
Prevalent, yeah.
prevalent. Yeah,
that's
people
fair.
actually use it as a mode of transportation, so it's not, uncalled for. I think it's a good feature. And of
Okay,
course,
Mac OS Sonoma.
Sonoma.
What were you excited about for Mac OS Sonoma since you're now a big old Apple shill with your MacBook? Ready, go.
Honestly, I don't have much that I was that much excited about. It's another update.
I am amazed that Apple invented opacity and transparencies for widgets.
And the
when
ability of
you're
moving the
looking-
widgets to the left now as opposed to
when
having
you-
them stuck to the right.
When
But
you
yeah,
look
no.
at something, they'll
Blur
blur
the
and
back.
make the widgets transparent so that they're less distracting. But the whole point of the widgets is also to be at a glance distractions. So Apple invented more distracting widgets that can be less distracting.
It's like
So I thought that was pretty great.
I like I said, I don't even, so even on my Mac, I typically rarely ever use the widgets, and the only time I ever open up widgets is because I want to open up my calendar. It sits in the widgets. I think the implementation of being able to throw things and making it more of an active desktop, moving things around, is intriguing. I think it's interesting that if people want to do that. I think the point of having them at a glance was the benefit. It's not to make them, like you said, more distracting, having them sitting in front of you. Now, if you want to put like the example they're showing us there, like a picture widget and so on, like to be able to scroll through images, the desktop isn't meant for that. 90% of the time, nobody runs apps in a windowed mode. They run them in full screen mode. The demo that they gave us, I felt like was not exactly representative. At least, and if I'm using my PC wrong, please let me know. I don't open apps in windowed mode. I don't ever open them where I'm like, I'd like to see a border around my, like the display is not, it's too big.
I mean,
want to shrink
I
it down.
do that. I've got a 4K art monitor over here and a 32-inch
Yeah.
ultra-wide gaming monitor over here. So going full screen doesn't make a whole. I mean, oh wow, look at what my camera just did and freaked out. So we do have for Michael Peppertech, web apps with support for notifications with Safari is nice.
That's that. Yeah, I can
That is, so this is one of the things that I'm always kind of surprised about when we hear about features like that, progressive web apps. Oh, and now you can have this sort of better integrated into a notification system. And I keep forgetting that I'm the nerd who's on Firefox, who has been doing stuff like that and sort of leveraging sort of the open source equivalents of like Chrome and Safari and all these other browsers, forgetting that like most people don't have access to that kind of stuff quite as readily. Chrome is now its own operating system as a web browser, so I forget that like Safari doesn't do that.
Safari
Like,
needs to catch up a little. No, I know. I think the interface
for all the
is
conversations that Apple likes to host about how they always come in with like the bestest consumer experience, it is surprising to me when something like that pops up, and I could have sworn that was already a feature of Safari and Mac OS.
I want to say Safari
it's
on Mac
not.
OS. It's not Chrome on Mac OS. Yes, and that's because it's just that's
No,
because it's Chrome.
that's what I'm saying. Is like that's where I'm saying is like I'm used to what I'm used to. So it's surprising to me when Apple promotes themselves as being a tech leader and they're catching up on features like that.
A number of the features that they released and they talked about were somewhat catch up. I mean, we're not talking. We have to remember Apple's solution to a lot of their tech isn't necessarily always innovation. It's a good part of it is refinement and coming after it's been out for a while and learning from other people's mistakes and then trying to improve it in their implementation. I feel like it's like 90% when I watch their show. Like I'm saying, what did they
That's the
improve
claim
now?
they make, but
Yeah.
they're just now bringing us notification support for web apps. So, like,
Because they realized people weren't
okay.
using Safari. But yeah, no, I understand.
All right,
Oh,
iPad
Mac,
OS
iPad OS.
17. What are you excited about for iPad OS?
Honestly, iPad OS, I was expecting it to get more functional, like desktop experiences and more. I mean,
They
obviously
have custom lock screens. Why are you such an Apple hater? You're like, oh, I was expecting them to do more with these really expensive tablets. They gave you
they gave me
they
subscription Final
started
Cut.
off
Yeah,
the iPad OS 17
the
conversation.
conversation.
We know our users love to customize their iPads. And all of us went,
What?
do you know that?
That, like
Do
really?
you? Are you about customization? I really feel like that's not an Apple thing.
Have you seen the first iPhone and where we are today? Like it has a couple extra bells, but it
So
hasn't had
I
a lot of
love it
whistles.
at the wrapping it all up. We're getting to the very end of their iPad OS
Yeah.
17. They're part of the keynote, and they're like, "Oh yeah, and we're going to bring some updates to Stage Manager too. You'll be able to do a bit more with Stage Manager." It's like that's like the most important part, and you spend
Start
all
with
this
that
time
and then, yeah, on like
talking
lock
about
screen
widgets and
wallpaper.
lock screens. What are you doing?
I
Why? Why
it,
would
it,
you do that?
I know. I did not install the the iOS 17 on this one, or iPad OS 17 on this.
Yeah.
I'm sticking to 16. I will wait a little bit. My iPad is a little bit older. I don't have an M series iPad, but it's
Yeah, so you can't
overall.
do anything with it anyway. It's basically just a doorstop at this point.
I'm
So.
honestly I'm surprised it even made it to the list. Let's just say that it made it to the list somehow.
All
But I
right.
think the biggest thing that I've always wanted out of my iPhone is the ability of using it like a clock and a calendar, because
Okay,
those
so
are the
we're
few things
moving
I've never
on.
been able to do.
TK saw me like scroll my browser. iOS 17. I am actually going to be a little kinder
Okay,
because I am that nerd who wants people to do more things with their phone.
of course.
Okay, so this what do they call it? It's not standby. Is it standby?
No,
What
it's
is
not
the name of their
focus.
clock mode?
Oh, for the love of God,
What
hold on a
is
sec.
it called?
It's I was
I don't.
gonna say it's somebody in
I
the
don't have
chat.
good
If
notes.
you have, yeah, I don't.
Michael Peppertech already knows this stuff. He's
Yeah,
probably filling in all our gaps. But I believe there is some concern at Apple over some of the mixed mode standby. I was right. It was standby mode. Okay. There is some concern over where Google is going with some of their products, and standby mode to me looks like a direct acknowledgement of some of the good ideas we're seeing.
like
When you look at a
3 years
Pixel
later,
tablet,
but yeah,
no. I'm actually giving Apple credit here. I think Apple is on the pulse. Apple is looking at what is going to be an immediate threat from a Google tablet that docks and becomes a smart display, like a smart speaker kind of screen.
okay.
And Apple does not have a solution for that for their home management, their home smart systems.
Can I introduce you
So
to the Pixel 7 with the Pixel dock?
no. But this is kind of what I'm talking about. Is
'Cause I was gonna
Google
say 3 years.
Google
two
is
to 3 years
winning
already.
for
Yeah,
sure. No,
I
I
think
get
that's
you.
what it was.
But Google isn't backing off. See, HomePods sell okay, but the first generation was an utter disaster.
Oh,
Siri is still ruthlessly mocked for being the dumbest of all of the voice assistants. There is I as we saw this keynote go on, there were these ebbs and flows in Apple's stock price, and Apple leaned away from anything AI. And
yeah.
that's what a
was
whole bunch of
very
investors
was
but that's what a whole bunch of investors
was
wanted to hear
expecting.
about.
Yeah, they wanted to hear the same conversation. Google was AI responsibly,
So
AI responsibly.
this has zero to do. This is my perpetual frustration with how stupid the stock market really is as any indication of the economy or corporate health. Has nothing to do. Apple is the stupidest, most profitable company in the existence of
Like, how do they
consumer
make money,
electronics.
man? That's the yeah.
It it's investors who want them to say and placate all of these fads. So a couple years ago, it would have been, is Apple doing anything about crypto? I didn't hear anything about crypto in WWDC. Let's tank the stock price. Is Apple doing anything with NFTs? I didn't hear anything about NFTs in WWDC. Let's tank the stock price. And this year, the fad is AI. But what I think Apple is doing and utilizing their premier, their crown jewel, their flagship, makes the most money product, they don't have a good infrastructure for smart speakers, smart displays, ways that you can really take over the home. And
They're
Google
trying.
is
I
the
bet.
only company that
Yeah.
can generate some consumer interest in North America with that kind of home modular tablet strategy. So this hits Apple in two ways. It makes a it makes a Pixel tablet a little bit more attractive. Maybe someone might want to use a Pixel tablet and pull double duty with a smart display and a tablet instead of getting an iPad.
That
And
makes sense.
this reinforces Google's dominance in search and AI, things that Apple is woefully behind on. So
Well,
what can you do?
I
What
will
can
say
you
that
do? You can
yeah.
set up a special mode so that now we reinforce MagSafe. You'll want, people are going to want to spend more on nicer MagSafe displays, and it gets additional use out of the iPhone that was not present in any of Apple's products to this degree. So I actually think standby mode in iOS 17 is exactly the right reactionary play.
It
It's
is
not
absolutely.
progressive. It doesn't move the needle on anything. It
Thank
doesn't
you.
improve
The
features.
key word is
but
reaction. Yeah. Yes.
but this is Apple actually reacting to what their competition are doing and providing a feature that people are going to get more benefit out of their phone.
And I think the approach to this, I think, is very nice and very. Like when I saw that announcement, when I saw that, I was like, it felt familiar to me. I'll say that. I didn't make the connection to the tablet because primarily I felt like that was more. It's like the Nest Hub experience slash tablet,
sure.
like Google
Yeah.
going back into that. And we really need to see how that implementation, how that transition kind of goes on and off, on
Yeah.
on tablet, off
But it's
tablet
going to
kind
be
of thing.
it's going to be a little bit before Apple can
Quite a bit.
utilize iPads
Yeah.
and build an infrastructure where you can magnetically mount iPads.
I was about to say, yeah, because they don't have any pin connectors
They don't
for
have
them
anything
in
like
that
that.
sense. They don't have any
Yeah.
mounting connector options because they've never built it into them. But you're right; it's going to take them another cycle, at least maybe 2 cycles to catch up. The approach
And
that
then
I saw was
they've got to go through three product lines of iPads.
yeah,
Because it's going to make the
all of
most sense.
It's the
So
iPad
this is
Airs.
what's so messed up. It's going to, no, not the iPad Air. It would make the most sense
Mm-hmm.
to eventually replace iPad first as your smart display, then refresh through iPad Pro to get your professional laptop replacement hardware up to speed, and then go back, because they've just recently refreshed iPad Air. You don't want to cycle iPad Air next.
Oh no, what I
So
meant to say is
it's
that eventually
such a mess.
I felt like for the bang for the buck type of experiences where you're able to provide some type of solution like that at the most affordable SKU when it comes down to iPads. I think the approach to what we're seeing here is very, like you said, reactive at best, but it definitely is done in a way where people, I feel like, will benefit from it. I think even that stand that they showed there was definitely very nice. I know a lot of Android users that I know, friends that actually use MagSafe attachments on their Android device
Yeah, I
cases,
know,
just so
right?
that they can get. I mean, it's a function that I feel like, even though, I mean, it took Apple to make it more popular, it is ingenious, realistically, the ability of having it magnetic. But it's not totally uncalled for. I've had devices and I've reviewed many devices like that on my channel that were based on wireless charging, Qi charging that utilizes magnets
Yeah.
around a case mechanism. So it's not brand new, but the overall experience here is making it more functional. To me, like I said, it was very akin to what I was expecting from Google, because Google's had their pick, like they don't have what's it called? They don't have the ability of cycling through your Google Photos in there.
No.
The functionalities in there to even be able to use it as an
That's why I'm
assistant
saying is
and
I really
music
think
speaker.
that
Yeah.
this is reactionary. This
Very
isn't
much.
something that they've been planning out to be an addition for iOS for like the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And they finally come up with this feature complete idea of all the things that a smart display can do.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is what can we do to quickly and efficiently iterate on something that makes your phone look like a smart thing in your living room,
Or it
in
looks like
your
something else.
bedroom.
Like it actually would look like totally a different piece of hardware once you're using it in this mode. And I think it's nice. And not to kind of belinger too much, but I feel like to a certain point, I'm not gonna lie. In my mind, when I first started thinking about the VR experience, AR, VR, and XR that they were going to be
We're
talking
not
about,
there yet.
we're
I
not.
don't want to spoil
I
like
envisioned
'cause-
something in iOS 17 doing that with it. That's what my
oh yeah.
liaison to it. I always envisioned Apple tying their solution for this to either an iPad or a smartphone. The
Sure.
way they announced it with the M2 built into it, I was like, okay,
Yeah, you're getting
we'll
ahead
get
of
there.
yourself here.
We'll get
Because
there.
we're still not done with iOS 17. Because the other thing that really pissed me off was Apple bringing contact sharing. So first of all, I want to give Apple credit
Yeah.
because their method of bringing two iPhones together, and it immediately goes to a contact sharing screen where you see like a nice your profile picture on each phone, and you can choose to swap contact information.
And that you can control your profile picture. Not everybody
Sure.
can put a picture of whatever they want.
I
But yeah,
love
I
it.
get it.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm on board. I actually really like how Apple has streamlined that interaction. It sucks so bad that I'm gonna have to deal with parents at my daughter's school who want to set up play dates, and they're gonna hold their phone out, and I'm gonna be like, I have an Android phone. Can you just tell me your phone number and I'll text you? So that's gonna be a pain. But what really pissed me off
Can you bump it?
was
No, I'm just kidding.
bump. We had Android Beam with NFC support.
Yep.
And instead of continuing to use that as a trigger for these types of smart interactions and smart sharing, because I can share a contact to you over Nearby Share.
Yeah.
It is Nearby Share and AirDrop are so stupid cumbersome. I am broadcasting a signal. Can all the iPhones see that I'm broadcasting a signal? Well, I want to send this to this one iPhone. So now you're going to say that you want to accept this file. We had an NFC trigger that could bring two phones in close proximity, both unlocked devices, so you don't have to worry about security concerns as much. And we could have been sharing this kind of content the whole time.
Yep.
Instead, Google got rid of Android Beam to give us Nearby Share, and the process, and I'm not positive on AirDrop either. This process is so cumbersome. Wait a minute, can you see my phone? Did you tap the little pop-up? Are you broadcasting? I'm about to send it to you. Do you not see I'm gonna tap, okay, are you getting it? It says it's received. I don't know, where did it go? Oh geez. And this whole time we could have been doing all of this same kind of stuff. But now it looks like Apple invented bumping and we had it. We had that feature and Google gave it up to make a system more iPhone-like, which is the worst way to do
Watch Google bring it back next
immediate
year
person-to-person
with Android
transfers.
15. No, I think it felt very much like bump. Yeah, exactly. The bring two phones together, share music, share contact information, unified connection over where you can control your contact information, how it looks on multiple devices. I felt like it's a cleanup. But it's definitely kind of almost like they went back and they pulled that out of a history book what they wanted to introduce.
But
I think the
mean,
solution is.
But Apple did it wrong. I mean, again, if you're going to go back and you're going to recreate a feature that one of your competitors had, I feel like they spruced it up. They made it really pretty. It is not nearly as flexible because Android Beam could have been used for anything. You could send web links, you could send contact cards, you could send photos. Like Android Beam was great.
Web pages, as long as whatever was on your
everything.
screen, as long as your phone was unlocked, you
Tap
just
it
see
over.
it, it's
That's
zoop, and then you click, and then poof, it goes to the
So,
outside.
of course, in true Apple fashion, this is really just going to be for contacts to start, and I hope they include APIs so that maybe other developers, they probably won't, but it kills me that.
I want to say they did mention that it is part of the open, part of their music sharing API, that it was going to be available for developers, for them to start trying to hook into it. So it is going to be supported by other apps, but they're leaving it up to developers.
But again, in an Apple style. Like
course.
if you and me are standing side by side, I can give you a music file from my phone.
Yep.
Apple's never going to let you do that.
No, I know.
So again, iOS 17 also. I really hope that what we've seen from iPadOS and iOS from the last 2 years, I have seen such a rise in complaints about how buggy the iOSs have become. So in that we're seeing some new features, but they're not radical differences in the user experience. I really hope that Apple is taking this time to kind of streamline, to bug fix, and to patch things out.
I hope so.
The one that really surprised me, and if you were on the private Discord, I really did do an, oh whoa, oh poop, they really did do this.
The cheese grater is back, my friend.
New Mac Pro. There are very good reasons if you're in the Apple ecosystem and you need a workhorse, workstation grade machine.
Yep.
It still bothers me that like certain components, like you can't swap a CPU. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
GPU stuff also no, but this is now the only Mac where getting in there and adding storage and adding RAM.
Exactly. Expansion
So
on that level is supported.
It makes sense to maybe spend above Mac Studio, but start out at a lower level for Mac Pro and then upgrade it as you need it. This is now the only upgradable. There
Mac
is
solution.
no other Apple product that can be improved after you have purchased it.
Especially with the new Apple Silicon.
Yeah.
That ever since they moved to the M series, we've lost expandability.
All
we've
of that,
lost.
yeah.
Everything is soldered on board. Everything is on board, which makes sense, and I understand the speed, the performance. But one of the biggest challenges that I was dealing with when I was trying to buy my Mac was I needed to buy a Mac that had 32 gigs of RAM minimum. I could not buy a 16 and say, well, maybe I'll buy it a 32 gig, 2 sticks later on, and I'll upgrade it at a later time. No, you had to do it. And then luckily I was able to find one that was at 64 just to kind of top it off. But yeah.
Yeah.
They also did update. I think the Mac Studio. Did also
Mac
receive an
Studio, the update going to M2 Ultra. I'm now
update.
less positive on Mac Studio for being sort of a stopgap, oversized Mac Mini. Now that there is going to be an actual legit Mac Pro.
Yeah.
If you're a pro, the starting price on the Mac Pro is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And
Yeah.
when you fully max this thing out from Apple, it's a third the price of the maxed out Intel Mac Pro.
And it
which
outperforms. Yeah.
and yeah, well, I loved how during their keynote it was like, well, compared to the last generation Mac Pro, you're like, that's like a 4-year-old Intel system.
Like
That is so
like,
Apple to be like, oh, this is what I'm gonna say, it's just not as good. And you're like, but you're also like, who would compare? Oh, but my Dell from 4 years ago is so much slower. You know what I mean? You know, like it's such crappy, unlabeled bar graph keynoting.
It's a self pat on the shoulder. That's literally all
Right.
it was. But this was actually surprising. Yeah.
And this one was actually pretty cool too. Sorry, we
I
don't
like
have to
that.
spend much time on this.
Yeah.
Paul on the Discord, I think, is going to be flipping. He has a MacBook Air. He's like, I just need the bigger screen. So even though it's like a brand new MacBook Air, he's already like, well, I can trade it in. I got to get the 15. So MacBook Air 15-inch.
To me, it makes perfect sense, especially when you want.
it's great.
With the M series in there, the side we've always had smaller version. The Air was supposed to be light and nimble, and it makes perfect sense. And this is still going to be light and nimble. This is still an Air.
Yeah.
But you need an option for something that for content creation, or not even that, just even for people like me that just need slightly bigger displays to work with. I can't work on a 14 or a 13-inch display. That just kills me. 15.6 is like.
It's really a bummer that not everybody can just add some really good XR glasses. It'd be great, but there's just no good option.
I
guess.
edited my video on the Nreal Max using the Nreal Max. I was having such an inception point of experience there as I'm like sitting. So I was at Chicago
fingerprints
and I
all
was
over
going to
this.
Motorola, and this was around the Moto Edge and the Moto Stylus and so on. I was sitting in the room, and it was literally, I would probably say maybe 1.5 feet away from the wall. Okay. I put my Mac, I set it up, my mouse, keyboard, left hand on the keyboard, right hand on the mouse, and basically I
Was
was
it the Rokid or the Nreal?
No, the Rocket Max. My mistake. I called them the Nreal Max, but
How dare you?
it's like somebody's knocking on my door right now. No, the overall just the experience for me, which, and I feel like this would be a good transition also to the conversation that's going to come up, because I've used AR and XR glasses in planes for many months, for
Yeah.
between the two of us actually, almost 2 years now. And
Yeah.
the reason why I enjoy them is it is that ability of escaping the surrounding, the ability of basically, if you want to be able to do something and just sit there and you're in a small confined space,
Sure.
it just takes that out.
So,
So
so, so basically, what you're saying is you've already sent Apple money to get the Vision Pro.
all 34.99 plus tax plus shipping plus
Yeah.
kidney and plus firstborn. No, wait, not firstborn, secondborn. We don't have a secondborn, so we'll have to do it.
Uh,
Yeah, sorry.
all right.
I got
So
to
I,
keep
I
the
want to start. I want to start nice.
Okay.
I am. I'm very excited that Vision Pro is going to be one of the first. I know it's supposed to be a real consumer product, but really it's a dev kit.
It is a dev kit.
$3,500 headset is a dev kit, but
Yeah.
I am really excited that Apple is going to be able to bolster micro OLED manufacturing. So that's one of the reasons why this is an expensive product. I feel that's fair, and I feel like we can give kudos, Apple kudos for including a more exotic display, or I should say more exotic displays, plural, on this product. I also like the idea of popularizing self-contained compute systems. I think
Okay.
HoloLens started us off on this conversation. Oculus
did.
continued this conversation. And the fact that this is essentially a MacBook on your face helps further. We should expect improvements to processing power, compute power to scale with these types of experiences. And also, I like the idea, although I am not sure how it's really going to function, of incorporating a secondary display. So you've got your screens per eye, and then you have control over the immersiveness of how that might occupy your field of view. We have no idea what the field of view on this headset might be because Apple has not delivered any information, and most of the people talking about their experiences test driving it have been very handled and managed by Apple to say very little about what it's like to use this headset. Nothing we saw in this keynote was real. Everything was simulated. I
Oh,
kind of got
absolutely.
into it with Brian Tong on Twitter. He set up the false dichotomy of, but Juan, you say you love technology. How can you poop all over this? Like, my only options are if I love technology, I'm not allowed to criticize an Apple keynote, right? So that's not a thing. What Apple showed us, none of it was real. But the claim was everything we saw during the keynote was actually generated by a Vision Pro. Now, how do we know that that's not true? If you've ever seen screen recordings of someone using VR or AR or MR headsets or glasses, you see every micro movement of their head. The reason you don't see that when you look at the world around you is because your eyes and your brain compensate like its own image stabilization system. You don't see how shaky your head really is until you look at a recording
Of you.
of you
Yeah.
using a pair of glasses or a headset or something like that. So the fact that we're looking at this Apple keynote and they're doing these perfectly smooth, slow pans that are supposed to be from the user's perspective, BS. That this is
But
undoctored,
it's
really
because,
generated from the headset.
and I
That
think
is crap.
though it is, you were absolutely right. It is absolutely video recorded and pre-rendered and
So anyone who's trying to fight me that like somehow there's like a magic to this product, or how can you even criticize it if you haven't even really tried it? I'm not criticizing the product because no one has experienced what using the product is. Even people who wore it after the Apple keynote, they were not allowed to just use it. So it might have been awesome, but what they're excited about is higher visual fidelity, better cameras, because
Yep.
this is going to be like Google Glass Gen 2,
Yep.
right? If we were upset about Google Glass and privacy and people using cameras and things, then putting even better cameras on an AR headset should be just as concerning for our privacy.
I'm also wondering the heat dissipation and all the setups and the amount of displays that we're talking about in front of the eye
Oh,
with the
actually,
yeah
so twofold,
yeah
and I actually do trust that Apple has learned some of their lessons from the AirPods Max.
okay
It is really not a good idea to make head computing and head media consumption all out of glass and metal.
yeah
It looks flashy. It's gonna make people say things like, "Oh, it feels so premium in the hand," but it's heavier and it's going to trap heat worse. The
and
thermals on this are going to be a concern, but unlike the AirPods Max, this will benefit from active cooling. That M2 chip does need active cooling, and I bet you they've probably been cribbing some of the more recent. Like, have you seen the new HTC? The
no
Vive, I think it's like the Vive XR. I can't remember
oh
what it's
oh
called.
yeah
But they've got a pass-through channel that helps move heat like from your skull out through the
because
components
we're
that need to
talking
be
desktop
cooled.
class not that well I mean now desktop but like laptop
Yeah,
class processor right in front of your face and that was that
sure.
like you're putting an M2 and a coprocessor that
But
actively
but
runs all the sensor
but the
data
tricky thing, because Michael Pepper is saying there are active cooling fans on the front end.
yeah
It's not just can we cool the M2, it's can we move body heat. We have to start so many of these conversations from scratch. I have been playing with AR and VR for, I mean, since the original Oculus. And I've got like a little Windows mixed reality headset. I've been playing with all of these glasses. Like, you don't realize when you try to make this experience more personal, more immersive, and it has to interact closer to your biology,
yeah
everyone thinks eyes, everyone thinks ears, but no one considers skin pores. And as someone who suffers from some pretty radical psoriasis outbreaks, I have to be very careful about what I smush on my face for long periods of time. And you don't take into account putting something like that up against the skin of your face creates pockets and wells of moisture.
yeah
Like, that needs to be accounted for. So the fact that Apple said that there are cooling fans doesn't necessarily mean those cooling fans are there for your benefit. It
oh absolutely
means, it
yeah
definitely means it's there for the M2's benefit, but I'm hoping, and I'm giving Apple a really big benefit of the doubt here, which no other company ever gets the benefit of the doubt but Apple.
yeah
I'm hoping they have done something more like what HTC has done. I'm hoping they ripped off HTC, where what cools the chip moves air from your body through the components, cools you as it's cooling the internal
reduces the
hardware.
chances of fogging glasses and getting it.
Exactly.
No, any
And
if you've ever used an Oculus, you know that
oh, you know.
that heat, the sweat that starts dripping on the side of your face
Man,
after
you do
20,
two
30.
songs in Beat Saber, and it's like I've got
Yeah,
puddles.
yeah, exactly. It's like barely sweating on the body, but here it's like no, this is sauna central. Those are some of the things that I've always been interested in how companies approach them, because
Yeah.
with the glasses that we've reviewed within the last couple of years, most of them carry the sensors and the processors right dead center between the two
Yeah.
between the two displays, and it's I
Well, you
understand
need to
they're
reduce latency. Yeah.
well, not just latency, but they're also trying to fit into a form factor. Obviously, there's a
Oh, yeah.
limitation of where you can put big, chips
No. I
and
mean,
boards.
you could literally, I mean, if you look at the HTC's design, they use it for a battery. You could put compute components on the back, but once
Oh,
you're
absolutely.
wiring everything to those displays, that is such a profound engineering challenge that we often just go right between the eyes.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I think, oh, okay, so
Michael Peppertech is saying all day cooling comfort is what I've heard passed around as the phrase. Says who?
2 hour
I'm
comfort,
not
not
picking
all
on
day.
you, Michael.
It's
What
two
I'm
hour.
saying
It's
is
2 hour comfort. Sorry.
the headset runs for 2 hours on a battery charge, unless you've got it hard cable connected, which I hear is always bad on my other glasses, that there's a cable on them. So obviously, anyone who's ever criticized these other glasses is going to criticize the Vision Pro for having a cable also.
Yeah.
But no one has used it. So we don't know if there is all, like, I can wear this all day for real. And that's the thing that really bothers me about Apple's presentation, is how like aspirational and emotional it was,
Yeah.
how mean-spirited it was towards the competition, completely misrepresenting what the current state of mixed reality and virtual reality are. And then also blurring the lines in really unfortunate ways, where Tim Cook starts the presentation saying AR is a profound technology, and Apple had no augmented reality to show. There was zero augmented reality. Everything they showed us
Was basic
was
apps.
experiences similar to mixed reality headsets. And that to me is the problem I've always had with Apple and the press. Whether or not this product turns out to be a great product, their keynote and their press influence, I felt, was extremely toxic, because I've been playing in this space for so long now.
Yeah.
If you're telling me that this is the next leap, the only thing that they demonstrated was it's got better cameras and it's got better displays.
Yeah.
Well, what's the price? Because show me another VR headset that hasn't been savaged for being too expensive if it was more than an Oculus Quest. Right?
No.
If it's any other company, it has to be a race to the bottom, to the lowest possible price. And if you price above a heavily subsidized headset like the Oculus Quest, well, it's too expensive. Why would you get that? You can get a Quest. A Quest is like $300.
Yeah.
But only Apple is ever allowed to work with some of these exotic technologies. Look at the backlash that, like, when it came out, because it's an older headset now, like the Valve Index, one of the highest visual fidelities. Look at the backlash that you see on the PlayStation VR 2.
Yeah.
I mean, this is amazing visual quality, but you also have to own a PlayStation, and the two of them together, that's like $1,100. Who would spend $1,100 on a VR headset? Whoa, it's so
like
expensive.
It's like 3 PlayStations and three VR headsets. You'll
VRs,
get to
yeah.
You'll be basically at the. That's what you need. You need that much power. No,
I
I'm with you.
mean, it's like I had to adjust my pricing, but it's like 9 pairs of Xreal Air, and it kind of does the same thing as the Xreal Air from what Apple
in what it
showed
does
us.
right in what they showed us right now. I will say. It's interesting. And I'll say it's interesting only purely because of what they were trying to showcase. I don't think what they showed us was groundbreaking. The only thing that they've showed us in there is they're obviously using better cameras. They're able to leverage that pass-through mode option where, you get to see the person's eyes, but they're not really looking at you. They're really looking at a display
Yeah, there's
of
some
the
really-
outside. Like that was like,
Yeah.
okay, like that. I felt like there was just more horsepower for no reason.
you can do a FaceTime call where it's a ghastly, uncanny valley zombie.
Yeah,
digital
essentially,
avatar of
yeah.
you is-
Like, can we say meta at this point? Can we say we've already gotten to the meta level? Okay, so I'll say this is where it got me a little bit off on the approach of what this is intended for.
Sure.
This device is intended for a single user. This is not intended and designed for multiple users.
Fair.
It's not going to approach.
Agreed.
You're not going to be this guy that like, oh yeah, wow, I'm going to go ahead and buy it, and then my wife can use it, my kid can use it. The reason behind that is the way it's designed, the user interface, especially if you wear glasses. And I'll say this clearly.
Yep.
The Zeiss lenses that you need to buy to be able to use, because you can't fit glasses in this.
The inserts, yeah.
The inserts are $300 to $600, and they're custom made specifically for
Yep.
the unit, and they're not removable. You have to get them done at the store, which means you just knocked out anybody else being able to use your glasses. Which
They were a sponsor on one of my videos. They are not sponsoring this podcast, but if you check out the folks at VR Wave, that's where I got these blue light filters for my X Reels.
Oh, nice.
And they cover almost every other VR and MR headset. Their prices are remarkably good for getting very high quality lens inserts for everybody else. For
yeah.
Apple, you will spend as much on vision correcting lens inserts as you would on an Oculus Quest.
So we're talking about a $4,100 investment for a single user, and and this is where I get it. Okay, for anybody that's ever traveled using any of these, when we talk about because they're talking about some people travel using them on a plane, this requires a special case. This does not come in a small conforming.
Nope.
Not that I'm trying to point it. It will not look into something like this.
Nope.
Okay, come on, Sony. It will not fit into something like the Roku Max that we have here. No. That is not the conversation.
Well,
So
I don't know about you, but the last time I flew, I actually didn't put them back in the case. I had my X reels. I mean, at the time they were the N reels.
you,
I
you
put them
had
in a
them.
shirt pocket.
Yeah. Go, you know, but that's the thing. The form
I can
factor.
fly on a plane with the Oculus Quest, but I can't put it in a shirt pocket when
I
I'm
just
ready to get off the
I
plane.
don't I don't envision somebody carrying a big, like almost like a Quest sized case, like
Yeah,
a bigger
that would be
case.
their carry-on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be the carry-on, and for them to carry that with them on the plane, for them to be able to use this thing on the plane. I think what we're seeing here, as you said, this is primarily an aspirational flagship or dev kit, per se. This is
Yeah.
what they're aspiring for it to be at the best experience, the best solution.
So, Michael Peppertech, I'm not picking on you. I'm genuinely asking. And I am
Yeah.
putting this out there because Apple gave us so little information in this keynote. And after Brian Tong accused me of just being a hater, I asked him point blank, I'm not being a jerk. Show me what this does that's better AR. Because HoloLens from Microsoft came out 7 years ago and did real spatial interactions with your environment and with your person. And so Michael Peppertech is saying they did show more AR stuff during the extended coverage. They should have demoed that during the main event for sure. Please point me, hit me up on any other social media, because unfortunately I don't know that links will show up in our chat right now.
Well,
But
they'll
show
show
me
up. It's
what.
just we can't click them, unfortunately. Yeah.
But I'm serious. There is no AR that has been publicly shown from the keynotes or from these style demonstrations that are on the Apple website. What we are seeing right now is mixed reality. We're seeing a floating window in space. But from HoloLens Gen 1, I could take a floating window with Netflix and I could turn and I could go to my wall and I could
pin.
stick it to the wall. And then I could arrange it so that it was the right size and at the right angle. And anywhere I moved from that room, it would act like a picture frame bolted to that wall. From the original HoloLens, I could hold up my arm, and in Robo Raid, a gauntlet would build around my hand, Mega Man style, so I would have a blaster that could shoot bugs that crawled out of the walls of my home. And everywhere I moved, it was perfectly oriented to that location fixed point. It augmented my reality and it interacted with real landmarks in the room that I just scanned. Apple has shown us no AR. Everything that we've seen is basic VR functionality and can be copied, not as nicely and not as at high fidelity. It is not the same experience, but putting a floating window out in space in front of you is a $300 feature. $300 on these glasses or on the Oculus Quest will do the same thing. So Michael Peppertech, they demoed the beating heart, the ability for 2D objects to come off the surface and make it 3D, games on the table or other flat surface, butterfly landing on your hand if you stick out your finger. The butterfly landing is about the closest thing that I would say is actual headset AR, where you've got a hand out in space and something actually interacts with that as part of that computing. That's pretty close. But again, on a VR headset or on an MR headset, on an Oculus Quest, I can draw something and have it float out in space in front of me from a 2D to a 3D image. That's not AR. Floating a 3D thing out in space in front of me is mixed reality. That's not augmented reality. So again, if it's not really interacting with my desk and my chair and the walls and my TV and all of the, like my computer monitors and
Well,
like
I mean,
if I
we're
can't
trying to
have
do
a
more than
bug,
what the Quest Pro can already do, which is the other thing. Quest Pro,
Yeah.
half the price right now, can
Right.
do most of the things that they're talking about. And I understand there is the Apple tax, there is the refinement in the technology, but I really don't understand how they could make, how could they approach it in the sense where it's not user shareable. This is a
Yeah.
weird situation because as such a massive investment, even if let's say you do buy it for yourself, nobody else can use it, and you are the only one who can enjoy it. And I understand that $4,100 is a massive investment for yourself. This is how I'm envisioning it, and people can correct me, and we can talk about this in a couple of years. this is it's going to sell to early adopters. It's going to sell to whomever the early content creators or whatever that want to be able to get that experience in there. And there's going to be a lot of amazement. But realistically, the second gen version of this, where there is two solutions, there is the Lite and the Pro version. That's where the people may even remotely look into this, and we're talking 2 to 3 years away. This is not a solution. This is a future.
I think you're being generous in saying 2 to 3 years.
Because this is typical what Apple does. I mean, they're showing us something that's unattainable.
No. I don't think this is an Apple problem. I really don't.
Okay.
I feel like techies, and I'm purposely also chatting with people in our audience, and I'm gonna be the person who's giving you a spoonful of medicine. So I'm being snarky to people like me. We have been consuming AR, VR, MR content in science fiction since we were little kids.
Yes.
The notion of a holodeck, the notion of holograms, the notion of I put on these little frame glasses, or I put in some contacts, and I have fully realized location aware, environmental aware, infographic pop-up Terminator vision with no batteries that you
No, I
can
was
see.
just about to say all of that running off the body heat of your own body.
Yeah,
But yes.
and in your contacts.
Yeah.
We've been experiencing that as a construct for science fiction and fantasy storytelling for so long. That's what we expect is right around the corner. HoloLens came out 7 years ago. And outside of construction and medical use and some of the
B2B solutions primarily. Yep.
B2B solutions, the primary application and the primary investment sector for Microsoft on HoloLens has become military. Microsoft took HoloLens, they made a big splashy presentation, kind of pointed consumers at it, but really the big money has been getting these government contracts and military contracts. And just recently, we just heard again, it's going to be another couple years before the military grade version of HoloLens is being deployed, because they're still working out issues with things like durability and nausea from some of the soldiers that are utilizing these types of optical systems.
Yeah.
That's 9 years of development from another pretty much $1 trillion company getting all that government cash to work on this system. I think it is very generous to think that Apple could maybe get another version of this to consumers in like a 3-year time frame. I think even when we see a Vision Pro 2, it's likely still going to be in this dev kit tier, not in a Pro or Lite version where someone who's making a premium purchase but a bit more casual, like it's $1,000 VR headset. I don't think that happens for 5 years at least, and maybe even longer.
I like the odds.
But again,
I like the odds. I think we can have this conversation in a few years, and we'll see what's
in 3 years we're going to come back to this podcast. I'm going to set a Google Calendar reminder. But that's also part of the problem is we have sold fully realized AR as being something that's just right around the corner, and it's been right around the corner for almost 10 years. And so you pick up these inexpensive glasses, and people are like, well, they're not good enough. They don't do enough. They only do like basic 3 degrees of head tracking, and the visual fidelity is only 1080p. Wait until you can get something real, or wait until something better comes along. They need to be better and cheaper and slimmer and have a full a battery and wireless connectivity. Every single comment I've gotten on the Rokids and the X Reels, whenever people criticize it, they're criticizing it with the idea that science fiction magic is right around the corner.
Yeah.
And those products that you see in science fiction movies won't exist for at least a decade.
Oh no,
at least a decade.
I will say that I'm very grateful that we are at a point in time that I probably will say I could not have imagined as a child. Growing up, not realizing, obviously having access to PCs and maybe Atari, I not once ever would have thought that a smartphone or something of this size would be able to compute and run my entire life on it. My personal, my experiences, everything that we're able to do on it. I could not have imagined that technology would get to the point where we are now. But I absolutely agree with you. We have this aspirational the Jetsons kind of an experience where we're all, get in the car and just float over and go over. We're not to that level. We don't have that experience. But the reality of what we have, and we always do provide Apple a certain level of, like Apple and Samsung, they get this level of, yes, but they'll fix it. But this is Apple and this is Samsung. This is the best thing since sliced bread kind of thing. Look, I don't disagree that this is a big move for Apple. I think what they're doing is aspirational at best at where we are right now. The product itself is still, we are in June. It is still over 6 months away at best if they release it in January. And they're not. But whenever they release it in early 2024 for the $3,500 price tag, it will be something that people try it. And then maybe, I think the more you say it, I think it makes perfect sense. The first and second generation are still going to be more of an experiment for them.
It's
The
dev
people,
kits.
and for the people,
They're dev kits that
but
they
for the people
hope
that buy it, I
some
really
of their
sincerely don't
diehard
think that they
fans
will.
also pick up.
No, absolutely, and there are always going to be those the solution where I think 'cause some people were referring to it as Apple's vision of eliminating the iPhone is essentially
sure.
making this. Maybe we're ready for Ready Player One. Maybe our lives are ready for the full body suit from
But
Apple.
I think it's the opposite. I think you're absolutely spot on that Apple is envisioning a future where you don't have a TV in your home. So everyone who lives in your home has to have some kind of wearable face computer. So
Yeah,
why
jack
buy
in.
one TV when 5 TV even better? And this is also where I'm very concerned that all of these demos and all of these simulated experiences, which none of them were legit, none of what you can see, none of what they showed in their keynote, none of them were real. They were all these, again, it's like trying to say this is going to be the best game ever, but all you saw were the pre-rendered cutscenes, right?
Yeah.
They
So
want you to own multiple computers per person, and each person has to have multiple computers in your household. The phone that does phone things, the tablet that does tablet things, the laptop that does laptop things, the headset that does headset things. And you can pair your headset and your laptop together to function as one computer. So I can't
that's
wait
how
to
I was
simulate
envisioning that. This is what I was
using
envisioning that
two
ecosystem.
whole computers to simulate the experience of using one whole computer.
It's the interoperability that I felt like this product was totally put in. Apple's known for making things work together, especially internal ecosystem working things. I mean, one of their biggest thing was talking about how that you were able to basically transfer FaceTime calls directly to your Apple TV and be able to use your phone as the webcam on the Apple TV. That was some of their, their announcements they were talking about. But this system, this entire system, the way you see it, and the reason why again, DevKit is the big label on this, it is an entirely siloed experience that did not connect
Yeah.
to anything else at this point. It's not trying to leverage anything else, and it is purely trying to showcase aspirationally what they would
So
love for it to be.
I'm
And we
showing
need to wait
right
to
now
see.
on the screen.
Yeah, yeah.
We're looking at this demo where there's a gentleman and he's in kind of like a fancy coffee shop or makerspace kind of setup,
Yeah.
and he's standing at this large wooden table, and there are these 3 windows that are floating in space in front of him. This is not augmented reality. I had this experience on a $300 Acer mixed reality headset where I could position 3 windows out in space in front of me, and the mixed reality headset had cameras that scanned my room, and even though I wasn't looking through those cameras, I could move away from those 3 windows and come back to them. It remembered my location in space,
The
and that
first
was
the first
relative to
generation
those
Quest
3
could do
windows.
that. Yeah. The first generation Quest did it.
Well, the only reason why I'm skipping the first generation Quest is because those cheap, and they were not good cheap. Like, it's not that they were nice inexpensive headsets. They were cheap headsets.
Oh no, absolutely.
But
It
those
was
those MR headsets were some of the first ones that we got to play with that had inside out tracking. So the original Oculus could do that by tracking your position by mounting satellite sensors to the walls of your room.
Yep. I
But
remember
like
those.
a $300, I mean, it was like $300 for the Acer headset, and then like you had to buy the controllers too. So the whole package was more than that. But we had inside out tracking. So this experience that he's doing right now, I could set up this lovely condo on the beach, The mixed reality home was this like open air Seattle style, chic condo, and I dock a window here, and I could dock another browser there, and I could open up Word over on the side, and I could move around those windows, and it would remember where I was.
Yeah.
I was at Newegg when we got those, so that was roughly 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And the main thing that Apple is showing us is a higher resolution version of that. We have not moved the needle on actual augmented reality. And some of the fun tricks that they've also brought up, things like, oh, well, you can use the cameras to scan something and then bring it into VR space is like, yeah. We had that on Sony Xperias. Like the Xperia XZ had a secondary sensor on the camera that could do 3D scanning of things, and then
Huawei had. I mean, it wasn't a good one.
Huawei
and
was
Honor,
doing
Huawei
that
and
stuff.
Honor had that one. I remember that one back.
We had that on like $600 phones from what, 6 years ago? So 3D scanning is not a particularly impressive application of a $3,500 face computer. And this is where I'm very anxious. To me, Apple had zero confidence in being able to showcase what this hardware could do. They deserve kudos for giving us some exotic hardware. But all of those rumors and all of those leaks, coming from outside of Apple, like the upper management is fighting with the engineers, and this isn't the product that they really wanted to put out, or it's too compromised for this. I'm really getting the feeling Apple could not show us people really using it. Think about all of the reviewers that we know, that we're friends with. We see them talking about putting it on their face. How come they weren't even allowed to shoot a little video of putting it on and, oh, wow, this is so amazing? And Apple wouldn't even let them do that.
No.
It was always completely guided, completely closed door.
Yeah.
When I got to try on HoloLens, they did all of those practical demos in front of a live audience. I was in the audience 7 years ago watching this guy build a Mega Man gauntlet around his arm to shoot robot bugs. That was real. That happened, and it was actually interacting with the environment 7 years ago. So what Vision Pro has improved upon is a better field of view, higher fidelity, higher resolution screens, better OLEDs. That's great. HoloLens is completely deficient in that regard. But if we're talking about AR, there is no AR on display here. So the only thing I can figure, Apple has spent all of this time, 7 years of developing their own headset, and now they're hoping
in
other developers.
They're hoping in about 7 months or so.
Other developers are going to find
built on their system. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is literally Apple's. I mean, this is their main claim to fame over so many years. Their core apps are good in what they do, but they only showed us what a smartphone can do. There wasn't really anything that Apple's ecosystem was capable. And I think it's because it isn't ready. It isn't really the solution. They wanted to have it part of the show. They kept it at the end because it was specific. They knew people were waiting for it.
And it's things like this video right here, where there's the part of the keynote where they show this gentleman like stepping into a panoramic photo of like an iceberg or something like that. And to me, this grossly misrepresents how VR, AR, and MR actually function. It makes it look like it's rendering parts of scenes well beyond your peripheral vision. To me, this is borderline like false advertising. This is almost to the same egregious point as like when they had all of those durability commercials that they got sued in Australia for, and they had to remove, like, there was the one where it's the iPhone's in a wind tunnel and it's getting smacked by cakes and things, and like they had to pull that commercial because it was a lie. That is not how you rate the durability of a phone. But when you see what they're depicting the experience as, this is an emotional appeal to what AR should feel like.
Yeah.
But that's not how these systems actually operate. That's not how they function, and that's not really how they render content. This is setting up an unrealistic expectation for consumers, and they're also making it look like other solutions can't do things like that, which is particularly toxic for Apple fandom. They are not looking at HTC or Oculus or Samsung or any of these other players in VR and MR. So they're getting this warped perspective of what the competition really looks like. And
Oh
they
my
think
God.
only Apple can do this right because look at how flashy this commercial is.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
yeah,
all
yeah.
just a commercial of pre-rendered cutscenes.
Did you remember the Samsung headset when they used to use their smartphones, like back with the S7 Plus and the S7? Magic Mountain used to have a roller coaster ride that
Yeah, I
ran
remember
with
that.
that
There
one.
were a couple of those. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So like that's the level of craziness that we were talking about.
Gear
Like actually,
VR.
it was like Gear VR with an actual flicking phone. I'm not saying
Yeah.
yeah, on a phone. On you sit in the chair, you set up the thing, and it was. I mean, obviously, I live at Magic Mountain, but to me, it was like, am I really doing this? I'm going on a roller coaster ride with a VR headset. I'm like, does this make sense? And this thing is running on a phone that is similar to the phone in my pocket. So no, absolutely. I think you're right in the way that it's depicting it, because even if you were sitting on the couch and you're looking out in space, the display is not displayed that way.
Right.
Content isn't shot in a curved display into your. It's played in a
No.
in a rectangular shape. It'll be reflecting a certain display at a certain distance. But the reality is, you're right. When you look at the motion of the presenters, not the presenters, the people that are in the commercial, like the gentleman right there, he's focusing, he's getting closer, he wants to move in. If he was really looking around in that environment, you would really see a more of a pan look. He's supposed to just focus on those mountains in front of him. It is all rendered. This is the biggest thing. And for the people that did use it in the comments that we saw a lot of videos talk about it, and referencing the butterfly landing on the hand, and they're impressed with the technology. But the reality is, why was it so controlled, and why was it not demoed in public? That was the concern. The people, the very few people that got access to it were very specifically picked and, like you said, tailored. Two
Yeah.
hours worth of content, or I think it was like an hour to 2 hours worth of the ability of sitting down with the presentation, with the scanning, and all of that. I think we'll
Well,
see what it is in 2024, where we are now.
yeah.
It's a night.
And we know that Apple has seeded a number of these to software teams that
I'm
can
sure.
help fill in the gaps. I'm not saying it's going to live like this forever,
Yeah, yeah.
but Apple has had 7 years, 7 years since the launch of the HoloLens, and this is a significant step backwards in actual smart augmented reality computing that now they have to hope developers will be able to catch Apple up to what Microsoft has been doing for 7 years. In
Especially
7 years,
interactive experiences with the
yeah,
controls using your hands. The approach to not needing any controllers or anything like that, but everything be in motion. Yeah, selection and having a tap on double tapping your finger for selection is one thing, but like you said, we've had these type of solutions in the past. The ability of interacting
yeah.
using your hands. Yes, we've had controllers and so on, but I think it
Well,
didn't win me over.
can we
That's what I
just
was trying.
can we just say because I think it was hilarious because like
Yeah.
literally in the keynote, and you can watch this in the keynote, they make this big play, this big appeal. Oh, and we got rid of all those bulky controllers. Well, who are they talking about? Are they talking about HoloLens? Because for
It's not.
around 4 years now, HoloLens has been all hand tracking. So they're not calling out HoloLens. So they're
They're
calling out
calling out Quest.
VR.
Yeah.
They're,
They're
they're
going
calling out Oculus Quest and HTC Vive and PlayStation VR.
head to
So
head
then,
to Apple. Sorry, to Meta. Essentially, is really what they're trying to shoot for.
and they're trying to make Metaverse look stupid, but you don't really need to try to make Metaverse look stupid. Metaverse is stupid. But almost immediately after that, in the presentation, they show someone gaming on Apple Arcade, sitting in the most awkward chair, playing a game on a PlayStation controller. But you don't need those bulky controllers anymore to do things with your Vision Pro. So here's a clip of someone playing an Apple Arcade game
With a
where a
control.
TV would normally have been. So you don't need your TV anymore, but you do need your PlayStation controller to play the game that you don't need the controllers for
I
anymore to
missed that part. Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. That would have been like,
Let me
yeah.
see if they even have it here in their little, because I don't think they've got it here. I mean, there are other things too. I'm always going to be critically disappointed in these conversations like, oh, well, I think it's a great idea that they put a proprietary cabled connectored battery on the side of this thing. But no, I guess they don't have it here. I was hoping they would at least have a clip of that girl. If you watch it in the keynote, it is what is it? What was it with this keynote? Everyone is sitting in the most uncomfortable position possible. Like there's the woman in that weird like white dress blouse thing, and she's sitting like she's got scoliosis. And like her legs are off to the side as she's doing little tippy tap motions with her
Oh,
fingers.
yeah. That the
And then
position
there's the
wasn't.
girl. There's the girl
It,
playing NBA 2K, and she's sitting in this really weird-looking IKEA-style chair, and she looks horribly uncomfortable. The only guy who looks like he's like in a comfortable position is the man who's looking at videos of his daughter.
I'm trying to see
All
if
the
I
rest
can.
of this just looks like really awkward. That has nothing to do with the headset. That literally is just, why did you shoot it that way? This is the worst presentation for your product that you could set up. Is
Oh, here,
I've got
Apple
this
Vision
great
Pro
living room.
games
I could sit
list.
on the edge of this bed, but instead I'm gonna sit down in this weird kind of awkward chair instead of like more comfortably.
I think I may have found the one that you were talking about. Let me see if I can refresh this page.
Oh, and I guess the woman who's also just watching a movie, she's kicking back. She's relaxing, all cool and all, shooting some b-ball outside the school.
Oh, come on. This I love it how you get to the site, you find the video you want to watch, but no, you got to watch the ad reel first before it hits that,
Oh yeah.
because that's how we do it. No, I think I found the commercial the clip that you're talking about. It was referred to here.
Oh, Michael Peppertech, that one was funny too. The meme was funny that showed the text from iOS 17 about being too close to your device next to someone wearing the headset where you're putting displays right in front of your eyes. I will give Apple a little bit of a nod there, where really well balanced and adjusted lenses and screens, your eyes still focus like they're looking out in space. So even for these inexpensive glasses and headsets and things, if I put these on my face and I draw an image to these glasses, I'm looking out. I'm not focusing in. But you're right that the actual optical system is
I think
right
this
up
was,
against your eyeballs. It's
yeah.
light just being force fed
That was the picture that we were
directly
talking
to your
about
cornea.
right there. I don't know why they just showed the picture and they keep trying to tease it. Hold on. Oh, here it is. You could
Yep,
see
there she is.
the
PlayStation controller.
the PlayStation controller, the headset, and the simulated display in front of her. Because yeah, that it's like I had to kind of try to find where that picture was. I don't, they weren't playing the video. They were just, it's one image snippet that they were just keep sampling over game list.
But again, I really felt like there's always been a bit of an Apple reality distortion field. But increasingly, I feel Apple has gotten more brazen in their keynotes in really misrepresenting what their competitors are doing. And we've seen this in a number of situations where also, if there's a problem with an Apple product and another product working together,
Yeah.
it's often Apple's fault, but they can always make it look like the other product is to blame.
Or
And
the other
this is the
product is not,
thing.
even the other product is not as good still. But yeah.
Exactly. And this to me is a major problem that we have, where we unfortunately know many of our friends who work in this industry who will talk to us off the record. It's not our place to out these other reviewers and journalists, but anyone who is too critical of Apple, or is maybe they're a really big fan of Apple, but they're not enough of a fan of Apple, gets blacklisted by Apple PR. And the best example of a conversation about that is you can check out John Redinger's video where he talked about how he got blacklisted from Apple by criticizing early software. What was it, on the iPhone 10R?
Oh wow. Okay.
I want to say it was that. It had a really buggy launch. This is very uncharacteristic of iPhones. This is like one of the sloppiest products they put out early. And he did a video reasonably showing these are the problems I had with a phone I bought. It wasn't even like Apple gave him the phone.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Apple PR went after him and demanded he remove content from his channel. And he has not been on the nice list with Apple, even though he's a really big fan of Apple. So if you make money on tech commentary and Apple blacklists you, that is a significant hurt to your ability to monetize your content.
It's a tough position. No, I know what you mean. I know, and it's a tough situation. It happens with other brands as well. It's not just even that specific one.
Oh, I mean, I have a very similar story to tell with Samsung, between me and Samsung personally, but it's not quite as directly, because we're talking about Apple. So
No, I know.
I'm
Because yeah,
purposely
the flip side
trying
of
to
that,
highlight, when we know that there are people who would normally be more critical of other products, and they're just sort of simply describing their experiences with the Vision Pro, it is for a very specific reason, and they might not even be able to discuss what kind of NDA or what kind of embargo they signed with Apple. It could be that strict. And Apple is a $2.5 trillion company that can make your life hell if you step out of line. So I feel like until we see some kind of regulatory action on Apple marketing, which is never going to happen in the United States, I feel like we're kind of doomed to repeat this cycle of Apple mischaracterizing their product, misrepresenting their competitors' products, and making claims that this product probably won't live up to in its immediate life cycle. But then everybody acting like this is the first coming of real VR and AR, when we've had this kind of stuff for years now.
no, that absolutely. And then I think we have to kind of see. We need to wait till 2024 to really start seeing more
No,
of what there's.
TK, I'm making knee-jerk reactionary conclusions today. If other big YouTuber channels can fully review a phone in the first week under embargo with pre-release software, I'm allowed to make a full review and conclusion on the Vision Pro before it's even in anyone's hands.
Yeah, no, I know.
Done.
Absolutely. Thank you for the
Done.
review, and I really appreciate your
Citation given.
given. You buttoned it up and
You know what I'm
submitted it and sent it to the presses.
we absolutely need to wrap this up. I knew we were going to run long on this one, but
Oh, no, there's a reason why I put it at the end. I knew
Can-
that they could, yeah.
Can I tell you,
Sure.
now that Apple has done this, I am so ready for a plastic, lightweight, self-contained compute unit, maybe using a new Qualcomm SoC,
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
but charge me for it. I'm ready to give you $2,000 and get me some of those micro OLEDs.
Those new displays.
Get me some
yeah.
of those micro OLEDs. Give me a Quest style,
So
or
they were
now this
supposed to be running
HTC Vive style.
Yeah, they were running at 90 frames per second from what I saw somewhere. I think it wasn't 60.
that's
it was
good.
definitely better. Yeah. 90 is actually
Michael-
really good.
Michael Peppertech was saying it's about a 100-degree field of view, which is not great.
No, it's actually smaller than most of the ones that we've seen. I think ours have always been around 110 to
I want to
120.
say, wasn't the Samsung Odyssey? That was another MR headset. Samsung had one of the best MR headsets. I'm really sad that they didn't continue them.
I'm trying to remember. Was it?
I want to say they were 120.
Most of them are around the 110 to 120. The 100 is actually kind of on the lower end.
Yeah. So
No,
that's
but-
really not a great. I mean, it's good. I mean, when we talk about these $300 to $400 wearable displays, this is what, 55-degree field of view. So obviously, a $3,500 optical system is going to outperform a $400 optical system. But when you look at other VR solutions, especially PlayStation VR 2 looks so good. I've only spent a couple minutes with one on my face because I don't have a PlayStation 5, or else I would have pulled the trigger at launch. But man, is that a pretty image. It is.
Yeah, we held
gorgeous
it. We held
fidelity.
it back in November of last year. We didn't get a chance to turn it on, and now it's an actual thing. And it powered by MediaTek too, which is also really nice to see MediaTek
great.
technology in there. I do have my PlayStation. My baby's sitting right here, and I may end up pulling the trigger on it this summer, depending. We'll see how things are. If
It's.
my
I mean,
pockets
but have
can
you
allow
really?
me.
But have you played with it? Have you played on
No,
one?
that's the thing. I've never. I don't have anybody that. I don't like going to stores and trying to check it out in different places. I'd like to try my own, and I know how good it is. Like Trisha, the cover that she did, all of the stuff that she covered on it made me excited to try to want to get it.
I've literally just, it was what is the racing game? It's Forza, and normally that kind of experience would make me Rolf immediately. I'm so bad motion sickness whenever it comes to first person perspective in games now, but doing part of a track in Forza was it Forza?
I want to
can't
say
remember. It was a racing game.
Forza is a Microsoft. I want to say it has to.
Oh, it might have been Gran Turismo.
Yeah. I was gonna say
So it might have been that.
Forza is
Sorry.
Microsoft
I'm not a
proprietary.
racing game guy because again, especially like racing games on monitors, I need a barf bag. But playing that on PSVR 2, oh man, it
Yeah,
was so good.
it's still $549. I was hoping, we'll see. We'll see. I'm waiting. I'm hoping for like some kind of
It's still $549. It just came out.
Oh, they came out in February. We're in June. Last time
This is still new.
Wait,
I know
so
we're
this-
used
this-
to like a cell phone coming
yeah, I was
out
gonna
and
say,
then
this is
going
not
on
like-
sale.
Come on, Juan. It's supposed to be what, like half the
I
price
was say, like, you at least need to wait until Thanksgiving, dude.
now? Well, what do you? No, I'm hoping Prime Day may have some kind of specials. I doubt it, even if they did. But at some point or other, if I do find it on good sale,
But no.
oh,
Before you even talk about buying one, just
try
try
one.
to use one. The image quality is phenomenal. And obviously, a micro OLED is going to improve upon that. So now I'm ready. Like $1,000 PlayStation VR 2 with even better inside-out camera tracking and micro OLEDs. Let's do it. There is nothing holding us back now. This is the right time for a Valve Index 2 where they incorporate the guts of a Steam Deck into a VR headset so that you can play VR Steam games in a fully self-contained unit
Yeah.
and give me some of them micro OLEDs and charge me $2,500. And I'm here for that. Let's do it. Because I'm so tired of like only Apple is ever allowed to sell a premium product and everyone else has to sell the most aggressive sale at the lowest possible price for anything to ever hit consumers. If Apple's going to expand this envelope for us, I want to see it. I want to see HTC come out with a premium headset. I want to see Oculus come out with a premium headset. I want to see Valve come out with their first all-in-one self-contained headset.
Yeah.
Let's do it because that's the only way that we'll survive this. If we leave it up to Apple and this doesn't land exactly how investors think it should, then Apple is going to kill face computing. So it can't be left up to Apple. We have to actually acknowledge good competition around the market.
And we need the good competition. We need other players to step up the game and bring in the self-containing solution. I think the battery solution that they're offering right now is a little bit.
It's dumb.
It is. I was like, I felt like the moment you saw like, okay, so you tell me they have to walk around with a battery pack?
It needs to be savaged by EU regulators for using a proprietary connector.
Oh,
It's unforgivable.
yeah.
Apple is going to try and dance around this by saying it's a headset, not a computer or a tablet or a phone. But all of what they've been talking about is how it's really a computer on your face. So having a proprietary connector built onto a product like this is now in the legal gray area of the EU's new regulations against these types of differing or proprietary cables. I bet you Apple's going to get away with it, but they shouldn't. This should be in the crosshairs of EU regulators because you're tying a battery to a fused cable to a proprietary connector. That's BS.
And I think that's going to be the biggest issues right now, right? That's why it's initially, even at launch, it's only available in the US. That's why they haven't really tackled the EU side.
See?
Yeah.
See what they did there?
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
I'm with
see how
you.
they're tricky like that? Those
follow.
tricky little buggers.
It's one of those solutions that I feel like it's going to be carefully touted. Like the iPhone 14 is another conversation. We'll see how the iPhone 15 does with that whole cable and USB-C so on. But I do realize that we have taken actually
We need to wrap this up.
I was going to say we've taken the championship on this one. I think this is our longest podcast
This is
ever.
our longest podcast. 15
Absolutely.
minutes ago, I said we should start wrapping this up.
That was a whole other podcast. But look, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of conversations still going on. We need more data. We need more information to be able to kind of get a better understanding of where things are.
I mean, except for me, I already came to a conclusion. But
Obviously, and please make sure to check out Juan's 20-minute review, fully substantiated and all of that good stuff. Knee-jerk reaction included for free on the show. But the biggest thing I'll probably say is, we need more time. The overall performance that we see there with Sony's been doing really, really nice. Realme's been doing really good things as well with their devices and their improvements that they've been able to get us. The technology's in our hands. So with that being said, I do want to say thank you very much for everybody for hanging out with us for this podcast, our 120th podcast, to commemorate the 120 hertz of everything Sony. When we were talking before, I wanted to kind of tie that in. I was like, hey, this is 120. We're talking Sony 120, 120, 120, 120, like the Sony experience. So we'll see you guys hopefully next week for another episode of the Best of Our Week, and make sure to catch Juan on Monday for the SGGQA, his podcast on his channel that is also running on this on the YouTube side. If you following this channel, he does also co-stream it to this channel as well on Mondays. But take care, be well, stay safe, and start saving up for those $3,500 or $4,100 headsets if you're looking for them. I guess starting in January, because this will be inexpensive.
Or buy 8 pairs of X Reels.
Or 8 pairs of X Reels, which could actually do much better. But take care, everybody. Be safe. We'll see you guys next week.